Chapter 473. On the balcony of Yi Bing's house in the wetland villa area of Jiang City, the rattan chair was still swaying gently. The book that she often held in her hand was fluttering in the wind. Yi Bing was dejected. He died just like that. Don't look at the book in my hands. Why didn't you notice the scar that I showed? You are too careless. Are all strong people so careless? Yi Bing was in pain. Everything is over. No matter when we return, the process might be different but the outcome is the same. One's personality decides one's fate. My mission is complete. Many guests came to the Jiang City cemetery today. Even the big boss came personally. He had an agreement with Zhang Luoxia that he would ensure his family's prosperity. His appearance fulfilled the promise he made back then. The guests were all dressed in black and it was totally silent. Bow. The big boss took the lead and bowed deeply to the tombstone. Their movements were very orderly, but even the air was filled with sadness. Cheng Ling Ran stood guard in front of the coffin. The guests who came and went finally said goodbye to her and left. Long Yingqing came slowly. She didn't wear her usual red shirt and was dressed in black. She was covered in a black veil which covered half of her face. Today, her cultivation was enough to support the Long family and even protect Zhang Xiu's family. You didn't manage to wait for me to return. She looked at the portrait on Zhang Xiu's tombstone and said, My great-grandfather found out from the Long family's private records that the citizens of the ancient desert cities started a war of revenge during the Qianqi era. They led a foreign race and besieged the city. The dynasty was helpless. Qianqi Emperor was in the east capital and slept in the palace. He dreamed of a beautiful girl who called herself the Lingbo Snake Celestial. He used blood to smear the statue and it shattered. The world collapsed. The Zhu family escaped this calamity. You were poisoned by the Snake Celestial's blood. Among the people, when farmers killed snakes, they couldn't touch stones. Once they touched stones, the meat would change. There were many legends about snakes and stones. The longevity talisman stone wasn't a normal stone and the Snake Celestial definitely wasn't a normal one. Do you know who the murderer is in the underworld? Do you want me to avenge you? Long Yingqing's gaze became incomparably sorrowful. She knew that she had no way of obtaining Zhang Xiu, but when he truly left, she also felt incomparably sorrowful, as if she had nothing left to live for. All these years, she had been trying her best to prove herself and make Zhang Xiu look at her in a different light. But in the end, that moment never came. My condolences. Long Yingqing came to Cheng Lingren's side and comforted her. When she found out that Zhang Xiu was going to marry her, Long Yingqing was really envious of this woman, but now, she was still envious. At least the world knew that she was Zhang Luoxia's wife. Cheng Lingran bowed slightly to her. The guests left one by one. Wang Xintong only watched from afar. After silently protecting Zhang Xiu, she left. She wanted to leave this place. Zhang Xiu was very far-sighted and arranged a path for her, which was to go to the immortal world. She followed Zhang Xiu's instructions and found the person who taught the immortal scriptures. These days, she had been listening there and her cultivation had improved a lot. After Zhang Xiu left, she planned to stay there in the future. If that person wanted to establish a sect, she would be his disciple. At night, in the wetland villa of Jiang City, Cheng Lingran was alone at home. There wasn't a trace of sadness on her face. Instead, it was filled with excitement and joy. She looked at everything here as if it was a palace. Who is it? Cheng Lingran was shocked. She quickly turned around and saw a graceful figure walking out of the darkness. Why are you so nervous? Are you feeling guilty? The shadow walked out slowly. It was her sister, Cheng Lingsu. Su, why are you here? She was a little unhappy. This was her home. Cheng Lingsu came and barged in without knocking. This was somewhat impolite. I'm here to see your smug face. Cheng Lingran frowned. Smug? What are you talking about? I don't understand. What's there to be smug about? Of course you're smug. Cheng Lingsu's long hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes emitted a terrifying silver light. She had a fierce temperament. This was her deified state. "Su Su, what's wrong with you?" Cheng Lingsu said, "You killed Zhang Xiu. You can hide it from everyone in the world, but you can't hide it from me." "What?" Cheng Lingran couldn't believe her ears. "Why would you think that? I'm your sister. Zhang Xiu is my husband. Why would I harm him? What good would it do me if he died?" Cheng Lingsu coldly said, "Of course it's to replace him. You hate being his vassal." Cheng Lingran shook her head and said, "Why would you think that of me? Zhang Xiu is dead. I don't have the strength to maintain his empire. How can I replace him?" "You still won't admit it?" Cheng Lingsu angrily roared, "Die." As she spoke, her figure suddenly rushed over. In the darkness, she turned into a stream of white light. Her elegant figure had already soared into the air. The six senses blade art chopped down towards Cheng Lingran's head. At this moment, there were no other colors in the room. There was only a silver blade light. Cheng Lingran's beautiful and moving expression turned into indifference and ruthlessness. She raised a finger and slowly pointed out. Her finger burst out with energy. Bang! The chi force carried an extremely strong penetrating force as it collided with the blade light. At this moment, time and space seemed to have stopped. The condensed blade light was penetrated by the chi force, and the blade light shattered. Cheng Lingsu felt a strong pressure coming at her. She grunted in the air and flew backward. She fell heavily on the marble floor and slid all the way until she hit the wall. She then stopped. "I'm your sister. You actually want to kill me?" Cheng Lingran looked at her sister in surprise. She couldn't believe it. Cheng Lingsu looked at her sister in disbelief. You're actually so strong." She was already a god. Cheng Lingran's cultivation was actually so high to defeat her so easily. "It really is you." "Pooh." Su Su felt the smell of blood rush up. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Zhang Xiu is so good to you. Why do you want to harm him?" "Why?" Cheng Lingran said, "So what? I'm just his vassal. Do I have the right to refute what he says? If he wants my Cheng family to live, I'll live. If he wants my Cheng family to die, I'll die." Su Su said, "So, you killed him? You killed someone who loves you so much?" Cheng Lingran said, "He loves me, but he loves himself. To him, I'm just a trophy that he can play with. Now that you're speaking up for him, don't forget how he treated you." Su Su said, "Isn't that because you're the only one in his heart?" She felt sad for Zhang Xiu. He was willing to sacrifice the world for the woman he loved. But in the end, he was betrayed and even lost his life. "Your heart is more poisonous than a snake's." Cheng Lingran said, "No matter what you say, we're not wrong. Su Su, I'm your sister. You should stand on my side. You'll have a share of the glory and wealth I have." Su Su laughed. The Cheng Lingran in front of her was strange yet familiar. The demon in her heart came out. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said, "We're not sisters anymore. We're enemies. Cheng Lingran, either you kill him, or I'll kill you sooner or later." Cheng Lingran's eyes were as gentle as they used to be. Now they were as cold as ice. "You want to go against me? Are you crazy? I'm your family. You're going to fall out with me because of a stinky man." "Yes." Su Su roared angrily. Zhang Xiu was definitely not a stinky man to her and them. "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" Cheng Lingran raised her slender jade-like hand. Her fingers actually emitted a resplendent light that contained an incomparably terrifying power. "I'm indeed not a match for minor repairs. But killing you is just a matter of raising my hand." Su Su said, "Kill me. Kill me." Whoosh! A fierce beam of light shot out. Cheng Lingsu's entire body trembled. She had no way of dodging such a powerful beam of light. She closed her eyes and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Zhang Xiu, wait for me on the road to the underworld." Chapter 474. The sharp light fell with a loud bang. Smoke and dust rose. A big hole was cut in the marble floor. It extended all the way to Chang Lingsu and stopped in front of her. Cheng Lingren's angry voice came. "I'm your sister, I'm your sister." Chang Lingsu got up from the ground and walked to the door with difficulty. "No, you're not. I don't have a sister like you." Chang Lingran said, "Is it because of him?" Cheng Lingsu opened the door and paused. "You're too scary. When I see you, I'm so scared that I tremble. This room is very big, but you're the only one in it." Zhang Luoxia was dead. Everyone thought that the Zhang family's aircraft carrier was going to be overturned. Unexpectedly, Chang Lingran managed it so well that her subordinates were obedient to her. A few days later, Lin Yueling came to the door, but she was stopped outside. "Old Madam Lin, President Cheng is resting now. He can't see you." Lin Yueling frowned. This was Zhang Xiu's home. Although he was gone, these properties were left behind by Zhang Xiu. "I have something to discuss with Ran Ran. It won't take long." The person shook his head and said, "No, President Cheng won't see you without an appointment." Lin Yueling was a little angry. "I'm her mother-in-law." The person smiled and said, "It seems that Mr. Zhang and President Cheng's wedding hasn't been completed yet. Old Madam Lin, you're exaggerating a little by calling yourself her mother-in-law." "You?" Lin Yueling was infuriated. Zhang Xiu had left, and she was already very sad. She knew that her status would not be as good as before, but she did not expect that a small doorman would dare to use a chicken feather as a token of authority. "Go away." Lin Yueling barged in. "Madam Lin, Madam Lin." Lin Yueling rushed in and saw Cheng Lingran sitting on the sofa watching TV. The servant was so scared that his face turned pale and said, "General Manager Cheng, my people didn't stop him?" Madam Lin forced her way in. Cheng Lingran said calmly, "You may leave." "Mom, why are you here?" Logically speaking, all the sisters of the Cheng family were Zhang Xiu's childhood friends, and she had watched them grow up. However, Lin Yueling only liked Chang Lingsu, and she was very indifferent to this sister. However, she had no choice when Zhang Xiu married her. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xiu had only left for a few days, and she had already begun to put on airs. This really surprised Lin Yueling. "Ran Ran, Mom is looking for you." Cheng Lingran said, "Let's sit down and talk." Lin Yueling came with some hope, but when she saw Cheng Lingran like this, her heart sank. However, for the sake of the Zhang family, she still said, "Ran Ran, minor repairs didn't send you to the funeral, and I haven't had the chance to ask. Before the minor repairs left, you must have done something. Have you checked your body?" Cheng Lingran said, "Mom, you want to ask if I'm pregnant with the child of minor repairs, right?" Lin Yueling nodded. This was the only hope for the couple. Cheng Lingran shook her head and said, "No, I've checked. The child of minor repairs is a god. It's very difficult to have a child." Lin Yueling's eyes dimmed, and she was a little absent-minded. She regretted it now. When her son wanted to leave, she should have just let him go. Instead, she forced him to marry and have children before he could leave. In the end, she lost her life. "Mom, is there anything else?" Lin Yueling was stunned for a moment. Only then did she understand that she was asking her to leave. She was furious. She was her mother-in-law. How could she treat her like this? However, Lin Yueling didn't want to argue with her. She could only stand up and leave. "In the future, if they come again, stop them." "I know, President Cheng." In the Cheng family's villa, Cheng Lingsu was holding the little calf in the backyard. Her gaze was a little distant. Until now, she still couldn't believe that Zhang Xiu had left just like that. However, the reality in front of her made her believe it. "Nyo, he's gone. He's gone forever. I'm so sad. I'm really sad." The calf looked at Cheng Lingsu and made a mooing sound. "He didn't forgive me until he died. He thought I was a bad girl." "Nyo, I'm not. I'm really not." The calf also lowered its head sadly. It got up and went to the flower bed in the backyard to pick a flower. Then, it offered it to Su Su. However, Su Su wasn't in the mood to accept the flower. She shook her head and said, "No, thank you. However, I'm really not in the mood now. I want him to come back to life and live well." The calf used its hooves to write a line on the ground. "He's not dead." Su Su said, "He's dead? His entire person disappeared?" The calf wrote another line, "I can feel his presence." Su Su knew that this calf was extraordinary. It could be considered as Chang Ling Su's half-master in cultivation. This calf played a crucial role in her rapid progress in cultivation. "No, are you serious? He's really still alive?" The calf, Chongyong shedding. Chang Ling Su said, "What does Chongyong shedding mean?" The calf, "It's a secret technique that allows one to abandon their physical appearance. Last night, I saw the Chongyong star in the sky light up for a moment. That's because someone used Chongyong shedding. Next year, when the earth returns to spring and all living things are full of vitality, he will be reborn." "Really?" The calf, "This secret technique can only be mastered by gods. He's just an earth god. It's indeed strange. However, I can feel that he's still alive." Chang Ling Su said, No, don't try to fool me. A year's time will pass very quickly. If I find out that you lied to me, I won't let you off." Moo. Chang Ling Su's heart lit up with hope. Humans were actually very simple. As long as there was a little hope, they would be able to live on. Su Su's mood suddenly became better. She firmly believed that next spring, Jiang Xiu would be reborn like all living things. No, I'm going out for a while." Lin Yueling did not expect Chang Ling Su to come. Ever since that day at the police station, their relationship had dropped to the freezing point. Chang Ling Su called out timidly, "Auntie." Lin Yueling had just been humiliated by Cheng Lingran. She was still unhappy and did not have a good expression. Cheng Ling Su said, "No, nothing. I just came to see you." Lin Yueling heard this and sighed. She looked at her daughter in front of her. "I'm fine. You're so considerate." Chang Ling Su said, "I haven't had time to apologize to you for what happened last time. I didn't mean to do that to Jiang Xiu. Forget it. He's not here anymore. What's the point of saying this?" Cheng Ling Su said, "Auntie, When she saw Lin Yueling's sad expression, she really wanted to tell her what the calf said. However, she was not sure and did not dare to speak carelessly. "I understand. You're a good child. It's my Jiang Xiu who is not blessed." Jiang Xiu had already admitted that it was all his plan. His purpose was to marry Chang Lingran. Chang Ling Su said, "Auntie, I came to say goodbye to you." "You're leaving? Where are you going?" Chang Ling Su said, "To the immortal world. That place is desolate and uninhabited. I heard that it's very hard there. You don't have to go there to suffer. Jiang Xiu's matter has nothing to do with you. You're so young and should find someone to live a good life with." Lin Yueling's words were definitely from the bottom of her heart. Chang Ling Su felt that the woman in front of her was sincerely good to her. She definitely did not hold a grudge because of past grievances. Her eyes could not help but redden. "I won't be gone for too long. 1 year, just 1 year." Lin Yueling said, "Oh, Auntie." Lin Yueling waited for Chang Ling Su to say something. However, her daughter did not speak for a long time. She asked, "What's wrong?" "Auntie, can I call you Mom again?" Lin Yueling was stunned. After a while, she nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course. It's just that I don't have the fortune." Compared to Chang Lingran, Su Su gave her a much better feeling. "Mom." Su Su cried bitterly. She was going to the immortal world for a year. She hoped to find a chance to grow there and become strong enough to compete with Chang Lingran. She did not know how Chang Lingran had quietly become so powerful. Not only did she hide it from her, but she also hid it from Jiang Xiu. "Mom, I'm leaving. See you in a year." Spring went and autumn came. A year passed in the blink of an eye. The sun was dazzling. It felt like every time he passed by Yi Bing's house. Every day, Yi Bing would stand on the balcony with a book in her hand, reading aloud. Bathed in the sun, she was like a beautiful, talented woman with a sad literary aura. Chapter 475. Spring returned to the earth, and all living things recovered. The sunlight was so bright and beautiful, scattering on the earth, warm. A figure walked out of the void, standing in front of Yi Bing's door. He raised his head and looked at the balcony. The balcony was empty, but in his mind, the girl watched him leave in the car at the same time at the same place. He thought of the scar on Yi Bing's wrist. It wasn't that she didn't want him to hurt himself, but she wanted to bleed. However, her recovery ability was very strong, so every day she had to put on a new knife, which was why the wound was getting deeper and deeper. And he was poisoned by the snake blood. This was what Long Ing-ching told him when he was dying. Although his consciousness was blurry, he could still receive the most important thing. Why did you harm me? He had been thinking about this reason since he woke up, but he couldn't think of a reason. Yi Bing didn't have a motive, and he didn't feel good enough to think that Yi Bing would hate him because of love. Moreover, because of Yi Bing's special nature, he was extra vigilant, so Yi Bing didn't have the chance to poison him bit by bit. And when he died, Chang Lingran's laughter, he knew that Chang Lingran was the murderer. There should be a relationship between the two. To be more precise, Yi Bing provided the snake blood, and Chang Lingran attacked him. The place where she attacked was the breakfast restaurant where he and Chang Lingran ate for several months. Under the sunlight, he seemed to see the girl again. She was holding a book, revealing the scar. If you wanted to harm me, why did you leave the scar for me to see? He appeared on the balcony. The rattan chair was no longer shaking. It was covered in dust, and the color had faded. The floor of the balcony was very dirty, and there was even moss growing in the corners. The book had fallen to the ground. It was already broken by the rain and wind. It seems like no one has lived here for a long time. If he guessed correctly, after he died, Yi Bing's family should have left here. He picked up the book on the ground. The book was twisted due to the wind and rain, and some of the pages were twisted together. One of the pages was especially flat, probably because Yi Bing had been reading that page for a long time. With this sentence, as the Empress Earth official, meritorious deed, eating a human face and a snake's body. The words above were also not complete because of the rain and wind, but these few short sentences allowed him to understand many things. He finally understood what the longevity runestone was. It mentioned the thick earth, the return of the souls, and Jun Wuxia wrote in Yudu that Yudu was governed by the thick earth beneath the earth. The underworld beneath the earth was called Yudu, and Hutu had used this kind of stone to build Yudu. It matched perfectly with the law of the world contained in the longevity runestone that could open up a world. This longevity talisman stone should be Hutu's supreme treasure. Below, it was mentioned that they fed on human faces and snake bodies. They should be a special group of demons that had the ability to restrain this treasure. As expected, they were Yi Bing's ancestors. They had the same bloodline and had the same talent. You're reading my book in front of me. If I was curious, why would I come over to take a look? Suddenly, his eyes widened. Could it be that she wanted to remind me? His cold heart suddenly trembled. Do you want to harm me or save me? I'm confused by you. Or, do you want to harm me but can't bear to, so you're secretly reminding me? He turned into a cloud of smoke and walked through the door. The house was also dusty. It should have been empty for a long time. Looks like she doesn't plan to come back. He walked out and walked towards his home. Everything was the same as before. The house was empty, but there was no trace of his life. The wedding photos that were hanging on the wall had all been taken down and replaced with a huge photo that belonged only to Cheng Ling Ran. Seeing this woman, he felt like his heart was being cut by a knife. He reached out to touch her in the photo, but his hands were shaking. In the end, he clenched his hands into fists. Why did you do this? For what? He roared angrily. His roar rushed out of the house and went straight to the sky, shaking the clouds in the sky. Why did you do this? To this day, he still couldn't believe that Cheng Ling Ran would harm him. Moreover, she had schemed to harm him. In his previous life, when he had nothing, why had she still accompanied him like this? He was in pain and conflicted. After leaving the villa, he went to see his parents. Lin Yueling was living the life of a rich lady. Zhang Yi was still the secretary of Zhang City. Everything was the same as before. In the end, he left Zhang City without hesitation. He would never come to this city again. At the same time, a young girl with an otherworldly aura came to the cemetery of Zhang City with a flower. She came to Mr. Zhang's tombstone and placed the flower on it. She said, "Zhang Xiu, I'm back. Spring has returned. If that damned Nyonyo is right, you should be reborn soon." I still believe that damned Nyonyo's words, because in this year, it has never been wrong. It said that you will be reborn, so it's not wrong. Come back quickly, I'll wait for you. This woman was none other than Chang Lingsu, who had gone to the celestial realm. Compared to a year ago, she was even more radiant and beautiful. She had matured into a perfect mature woman, but her youthful aura had not diminished. It was just that the peach had ripened and was waiting for her to pluck it. This year, Zhang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu were both 23 years old. Cheng Lingran was 25 years old. The portrait of the deceased is not vivid, but the portrait of the dead is vivid. Could it be that Zhang Xiu has come back? In this year, Cheng Lingsu, led by the calf, found John Doe very smoothly. After listening to the Immortal Sutra and comprehending it, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. She was no longer the ignorant person she used to be. He's really back. Cheng Lingsu was as happy as a child. He's back. Where will he go? Cheng Lingsu rushed to Lin Yueling's house as soon as possible. She thought that if Zhang Xiu came back, the first person he would see would be either his enemy or his family. According to Zhang Xiu's personality, of course, he would go to find his enemy first. However, his enemy was now living in Hangzhou City, so Zhang Xiu should go home first. After all, Zhang Yi was the mayor of Zhongqing City, and Lin Yueling also controlled most of the assets of the newly built commercial street in Yunhu Street. Even if most of Zhang Xiu's value was taken away by Cheng Lingran, they were still very rich and could be regarded as super rich. Therefore, they were not completely excluded like last time after Zhang Xiu's accident. This time, the big boss fulfilled his promise. As long as there was money, there would be a lot of visitors. Therefore, Lin Yueling's life in this year was not boring. She often had friends coming. However, without spiritual sustenance, she was aging quickly. In fact, it was not so easy for her to get over the pain of losing her son. Who is it? Hearing the doorbell, Lin Yueling, who was still eating breakfast, had to stand up. In fact, she did not like these people coming over early in the morning. Zhang Yi, who was opposite her, also frowned slightly. "Auntie." "Su." Lin Yueling exclaimed in surprise. "You're back. Come in and sit. Old Jiang, Su is here." Cheng Lingsu saw this and could not help but feel disappointed. Zhang Xiu did not come back. She entered the house and glanced around. Her eyes flashed. Someone had cast a spell here, and it was very powerful. It was him. It must be him. Cheng Lingsu became excited. Su, let Mom take a good look at you. You've grown up, matured, and become more beautiful. Lin Yueling was not stingy with her praise. Zhang Yi also smiled at her. Could it be that this daughter still remembered the two old guys? "You're not leaving this time, right?" Cheng Lingsu smiled and said, "I have to leave soon. I'm going to Hangzhou. Maybe there's a big happy event. Uncle, Auntie, I won't be doing it. Wait for my news." After saying that, she turned and left. This child. Lin Yueling called a few times but did not stop. Cheng Lingsu knew that after Zhang Xiu met his parents, his next step would be to find the person who hurt him. When Zhang Xiu saw Cheng Lingran, he would definitely know that it was Cheng Lingran who hurt him. He would definitely take revenge. To be honest, Su hated Cheng Lingran very much. But no matter what, she was still her sister. Chang Lingran was very cruel, even a little perverted. Just thinking about it made her hair stand on end. But really speaking, this sister was actually good to her. Not to mention, blood was thicker than water. Cheng Lingsu did not want anyone to have an accident, but this matter could not be undone. Chapter 476. The Cheng clan group building in Jiang City used to be called the Zhongtian Group. It was the core of Jiang Xiu's empire. This building alone was located in the core of Hangzhou City, and its market value was close to 3 billion. More importantly, it dominated the economic lifeline of the entire Jiangnan. Everyone who worked in Jiangnan dreamed of stepping into this building one day. Do you know who sent the gift? The secretary shook her head, indicating that she didn't know. Cheng Lingran had never been so scared before. Ever since Jiang Xiu's death, she quickly took over the huge financial empire he left behind and became the most powerful woman in Hua Nation. In Jiangnan and even in Hua Nation's upper-class society, she could do whatever she wanted. Even the leaders of various countries had to treat her with respect. It was not only because she was Jiang Luoxia's widow and had inherited all of Jiang Luoxia's inheritance, but also because she was now ranked third on the divine roll. She had only made one move, and that one and only time was enough to shock the entire world. Because she had defeated the Silver Wing King, who was originally ranked first. The whole world was reacquainted with Mrs. Jiang. After that, she occupied the first place on the divine roll for 3 months. As the new champion emerged, she was thought to have replaced her. No, it can't be him. In the gift box was a toy gun. The workmanship was rough, and one could buy such a gun at the roadside for 10 yuan. However, to Cheng Lingran, it was as if she had seen a ghost. When she was young, Cheng Lingran had bought such a gun for Jiang Xiu with the money she used to buy schoolbooks. Now that such a gun appeared in front of her, how could she not think about it? No. This was a secret between them. No one knew about it. I saw him turn into ashes with my own eyes. Cheng Lingran was very certain that Jiang Xiu must be dead. This thing might be a prank. President Cheng, the guests are all here. They are waiting for you to ring the golden bell. All right, I'll be right there. Different from Jiang Xiu's lofty ambitions, Cheng Lingran was obsessed with power and wealth, constantly accumulating them. Her ambition was still limited to the mortal world. This wasn't because she was inferior to Jiang Xiu, but rather, it was because experience determined one's achievements. Jiang Xiu had seen the grand situation of the immortal martial continent and only knew where the heavenly Tao was. As for Cheng Lingran, she didn't even know what the situation was like outside of Earth. The limit of her imagination was to accumulate the power and wealth of the mortal world to the limit. She had another financial project that had just been listed on the market. She held a celebration party at Shizi Manor. Madame Jiang, when the guests saw her, they all bowed to greet her. In the company, she liked to be called General Manager Cheng, but in a social situation, she was more willing to appear as Mrs. Jiang. Many people thought that she was reluctant to part with Mr. Jiang. However, only Cheng Lingran herself knew whether it was true or not. Hello, everyone. Since Jiang Xiu's era, the West Lake had been the most luxurious banquet venue in Jiangnan, and it had been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. After several expansions, the scale of the banquet hall had become even larger. Half of the hall was on the shore, and the other half was on the water. At this moment, the lights merged with the smoke and clouds of the West Lake, making it look like a fairyland on Earth. Madame Jiang, I heard that the stock market rose to the upper limit in 10 minutes as soon as it was listed. Thank you for your support. The Taoist Hall was not only for the upper class of Jiangnan, but also for the rich people from all over the country and even the world. There were also many stars in the hall. Cheng Lingran's beauty made those female stars who made a living out of their beauty pale in comparison. She raised her goblet, and her aura was amazing. Cheng Lingran. A pleasant female voice came. Everyone looked over and saw a girl who looked very similar to Cheng Lingran standing in the distance. If she wasn't wearing casual clothes, they would have thought that she was another Mrs. Jiang. Su, you're back? Cheng Lingran was pleasantly surprised. Although it was a little harsh to hear her sister call her by her name, they hadn't seen each other for almost a year. Her joy seemed to have overshadowed her unhappiness. Come here. Cheng Lingran seemed to be very happy. Let me introduce you. This is my sister. Whoa. The hall was in an uproar. It was no longer news that Zhang Xiu married the younger sister first, and then the elder sister later. It turned out that this was the younger sister. The two pearls of the Cheng family were both outstanding beauties. Cheng Lingran, I don't have time to put on a show with you. Cheng Lingran sighed. You still can't let go of this matter? He's been dead for a year. Do you think it's worth it for us to be like this for an outsider? Zhang Xiu is not an outsider. He's not. Cheng Lingran looked at Su Su and said, You like him? If you like him, why did you treat him like that? Why did you want to break off the engagement with him? I know it's because of your pitiful sense of justice. Cheng Lingsu said, People like you don't understand what feelings are. So, you deliberately sent me a gun to scare me? Cheng Lingran's eyes became a little cold. In the past year, she had been in the top position for a long time, controlling life and death. She already had a very strong aura of a queen. Cheng Lingsu wasn't afraid of her. What gun? Cheng Lingran said coldly, Don't pretend with me. If that gun wasn't sent by you, who else could it be? It's the toy gun I gave to Zhang Xiu when he was young. Do you think this is fun? He gave you the gun. Cheng Lingsu's eyes widened, and a trace of joy flashed through her beautiful eyes. He's back. He's really back. Zhang Xiu returned the important thing that Cheng Lingsu gave to him when he was young, which meant that they were no longer friends. He's really back. Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu. Cheng Lingsu shouted excitedly. She knew that Zhang Xiu must have come. He wasn't a gentleman if he didn't take revenge. Moreover, Zhang Xiu was such a ruthless and ambitious person. Would he let a woman eat him dry? I know you're here. Come out. Cheng Lingsu's shout stunned all the guests present. Was she calling for Mr. Jiang? As everyone knew, Jiang Luoxia was poisoned to death a year ago. Although Cheng Lingran thought that Cheng Lingsu was deliberately making trouble to scare her, when she saw Cheng Lingsu calling for Zhang Xiu's name, she was so scared that her face turned pale. Enough! She shouted in horror. Su Su, stop it. He's already dead. It's meaningless for you to make trouble. You'll only make people think that you're crazy. Is that so? Suddenly, a very strange voice came. Hearing this familiar voice, Cheng Lingran felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She slowly turned around. Her angelic face, which was carved with knives and axes, and her curvaceous body trembled slightly. Jiang. She saw the shadow in the distance slowly walking over. His image became more and more vivid. Wow! The scene was in an uproar. Jiang Luoxia's image could be said to be known by everyone in the upper echelons of Jiangnan. The person in front of them was, without a doubt, Jiang Luoxia, who had already died a year ago. You. Cheng Lingran was so scared that her soul almost flew out of her body. Her respiratory tract twitched, and she couldn't breathe. Her eyes were stinging, and they were bloodshot. Are you a human or a ghost? Zhang Xiu slowly walked to the center of the scene. He was still as cold and arrogant as before. His eyes were cold and indifferent, but there was an imperceptible pain in the depths of his eyes. Such a fierce and ambitious person was betrayed by the woman he loved the most. How ironic! One could only imagine how terrifying his revenge would be. Do you think I'm a human or a ghost? Cheng Lingran looked at Zhang Luoxia's side. There was an obvious shadow under the light. Didn't they say that ghosts didn't have shadows? Zhang Xiu was really still alive. He was still alive. Minor repairs. Thinking of Zhang Luoxia's way of dealing with the enemy, Cheng Lingran felt a great sense of horror. She instantly broke out in cold sweat, and her legs went soft and she fell to the ground. What's wrong, Rangran? Why are you so scared? Zhang Xiu's eyes were cold, but his tone was so gentle. You, Jiang Xiu said. Are you happy that I'm back? Cheng Lingran was almost scared to tears, but she still nodded vigorously. Yes, I'm very happy. It's great that you're back. Jiang Xiu said, I went to the breakfast shop that we used to frequent, but it was closed. It's now a cafe, and the owner has changed. Yes, is that so? I haven't been there for a long time after you left. Jiang Xiu said, That's enough. It's such a delicious breakfast shop. I also want to ask the boss how he managed to add the snake blood to his breakfast without the slightest hint of blood. Cheng Lingren's eyes almost fell out of their sockets, and her beautiful face was distorted. Chapter 477. Seeing her expression, Jiang Xiu knew that he had guessed right. The poison was in his breakfast, but it was not detected at the hospital. Jiang Xiu guessed that it should be Cheng Lingren's intention. The first thing that came to mind was the slow poison, and the breakfast with her became the biggest suspect. It could make Jiang Xiu exclude herself, because at that time, she was not sure whether she could kill Jiang Xiu or not. Seeing her frightened look, Jiang Xiu felt very painful in his heart. Why? Why did you do this? I can give you whatever you want. The truth was in front of Jiang Xiu, so he had to believe it. But he really couldn't imagine that the person who killed him was really Cheng Lingran. A woman who never left him in his previous life, a woman who cared for him in every way possible, would kill him in the face of great benefits in this life. Was it really like what Cheng Lingsu said? She didn't care for small greed, and only great wealth could make her nature show? There were indeed such people. Some people could be bought over with small favors. These people were often ambitious. It was a pity that Cheng Lingran was a woman, but she used such a method. If she was a man, her achievements would be extraordinary. Cheng Lingran said, Give it to me. Even if you give it to me, it's still yours. You can take it back whenever you want. Just like my Cheng clan's real estate, you can easily get it, but you throw it back to my Cheng family. If you don't want us to develop, I can't do anything. I'm afraid that I'll suffer day and night, pretending to be a grandson and begging grandpa. It's difficult for me to do anything. In front of him, Cheng Lingran was full of resentment, which made Jiang Xiu feel very strange. Was this still the sister Ran in his heart? The gentle, kind, self-respecting, self-reliant girl who made people's hearts beat? In front of him, she was so hypocritical, greedy, and like a resentful woman. Jiang Xiu said, So, you want to kill me? Cheng Lingran nodded helplessly. At this point, she knew how Jiang Xiu poisoned her and what kind of poison it was. She knew that it was useless to quibble, but she immediately shook her head and said, But when I saw you lying in the hospital, I regretted it. Until you left, I haven't regretted a single moment in the past year. Ha ha ha. Jiang Xiu laughed loudly. His face was as stiff as marble. His laughter sounded very proud, but in fact, it was extremely painful. If he had killed someone on impulse, Jiang Xiu would have believed that he would regret it. However, this was a deliberate murder. Yi Bing, who had originally been an ordinary girl, had turned into a snake immortal that could restrain his natal ritual implement. Who would dare say that Yi Bing's appearance had not been premeditated? It was terrifying to think about. Regret? I see that you're living a good life. You're enjoying everything you have now. Cheng Lingran shook her head. I can give it all back to you. Jiang Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Give it back to me? His eyes were filled with endless pain. What a pity, what a pity. You don't understand me, Jiang Xiu, at all. These things in the mortal world were no different from garbage to him. Yes, I'll give it back to you. Can you forgive me? Jiang Xiu laughed again. Don't you want to fight once? I've just been resurrected not long ago. My body is still very weak. Or perhaps, I can't cure the Lingbo snake immortal's poison at all. I'm just temporarily suppressing it. Cheng Lingran looked at him and felt a chill in her heart. I was confused for a moment. I was bewitched. I was blinded by power. Please forgive me for a moment. Since I was young, I've only known my mistake once. Jiang Xiu's eyes flickered and he gradually became a little confused. Yes, he had only made one mistake. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. He was the first person to hold a grudge, but he also remembered kindness. His childhood experience made him sensitive and domineering. He would never be able to play with Cheng Lingran's kindness to him. However, just as Jiang Xiu was in a trance, Cheng Lingran, who was sitting on the ground, turned into a strong light and rushed toward Jiang Xiu. It was a blur, but at this moment, it bloomed with a terrifying light. She held a dagger made of bone in her hand. It was the fiery blood dagger, which was refined from a piece of the snake immortal's bone. Once it was stabbed, the blood in the whole body would be burned. Bone and blood were connected. This dagger was no weaker than blood in restraining the longevity stone talisman. Be careful! Cheng Lingsu shouted nervously. Jiang Xiu suddenly came back to his senses. He widened his eyes in horror and anger. Seeing that the fiery blood dagger was about to pierce into Jiang Xiu's body, he shouted crazily, Cheng Lingran! Like those stupid people, when faced with the choice of life and death, she also tried her best to fight. Everything happened too fast and too suddenly. Go to hell! Cheng Lingran's face became ferocious and terrifying. However, at this moment, Jiang Xiu raised his sword finger. The strength was like a spray machine. The powerful scene instantly pierced through the void and hit the fiery blood dagger, which was emitting a soft silver light. Boom! The fierce collision of energy burst out with an unprecedentedly strong light. The strong strength rushed to the sky and broke the roof of the Shizi Manor. At this moment, there was nothing else in the world. Ah! Accompanied by the strong explosion, there was a shrill cry. Cheng Lingran was a superior god, but she was facing a person whose realm she could not guess. There was no other way except for a sneak attack. However, in front of the huge gap in strength, a sneak attack became so pale and powerless. Bang! The shrill scream gradually stopped. Then, under the suppression of the strong light, Cheng Lingran flew out upside down. Like a feather in the sky, she flew away and fell to the ground. Puff! She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. The light of heaven and earth faded. There was a huge hole on the roof. However, the broken roof did not collapse. Instead, it was directly crushed into nothingness by the strong light. It could be seen that the two forces were powerful. The fiery blood dagger fell beside her. No, it's impossible. Cheng Lingran looked at Jiang Xiu in horror. She had overestimated Jiang Xiu. However, in the end, when Jiang Xiu was distracted, she was defeated so badly. Jiang Xiu grinned, but his laughter could not be heard. I really didn't expect you to be so insidious. Now, what do you have to say? Cheng Lingran looked around. Those who usually flattered her, patted their chests, and said that as long as CEO Cheng gave the order, they would do anything for her. None of them could help her. They even stayed far away. Her eyes gradually became confused. I lost. Jiang Xiu did not expect that she would say such a sentence in the end. Then, be prepared to die. The long saber turned to hatred. The saber light was merciless. The incomparably sharp 7 records saber technique was released from his hand. When it slashed through the air, the fierce saber light slashed towards Cheng Lingran's head. Before the saber light arrived, the powerful chi force had already caused Cheng Lingran's hair to fly. Her face was filled with terror, and her eyes were filled with begging for mercy. A teardrop dripped down. Do you regret it? Jiang Xiu never hesitated to kill. But at this moment, his heart was not determined. His hands were also trembling. In his mind, there were many memories of the past, holding hands when they were young, being presumptuous in the mountains of Dongzhou, riding the bicycle in the university campus, tenderness on the Magpie Bridge, and the scene in the bathroom. What was even more unforgettable was the relationship between husband and wife in his previous life. Minor repairs. Don't kill me. Cheng Lingran screamed in pain. Her screams reverberated in the air for a long time, and the light on her forehead continued to flash. Cheng Lingran's eyes were filled with pain, and she screamed in pain. Jiang Xiu! Cheng Lingsu also shouted. At this moment, she also couldn't bear it. After all, that person was her sister. Cheng Lingran stole her man and let Jiang Xiu down. She was extremely abominable. But that was her sister. The fierce light in Cheng Lingran's body kept bursting out from her forehead. It was as if her life was fading away quickly. She kept screaming in pain. That scream was like that of an injured beast. Rang ran. Seeing Cheng Lingran's delicate body fall backward, Jiang Xiu rushed forward and held her. Cheng Lingran's spirit was weak. Her eyes were dull. She looked at Jiang Xiu and tears flowed out silently. Why? Jiang Xiu still couldn't understand at this moment. He was full of hatred. Wealth and power are just fleeting clouds. Those things are really worse than such *T. Cheng Lingran raised her hand with difficulty and touched Jiang Xiu's face. His face was so close, yet so far. Chapter 478. Ran Ran. The light on Cheng Lingran's forehead drained away, and her entire body collapsed. Her spirit essence was destroyed, and her life force was drained away. The Cheng Lingran in front of him was on the verge of death. She looked at Jiang Xiu, and her eyes were filled with complex emotions. There was resentment, hatred, love, and regret. But no matter what, it was over. Don't die. Jiang Xiu hugged her. Seeing that she was about to leave, he actually weakly spat out these words. Yes, they had taken care of each other when they were young, accompanied each other when they grew up, and finally joined together. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, Jiang Xiu had deep feelings for her. He couldn't bear to part with her. Then, will you accompany me? Jiang Xiu looked at Cheng Lingran in confusion. Suddenly, he was stunned. Cheng Lingsu, who was beside him, covered her mouth in horror. Her gaze fell on Jiang Xiu's abdomen, and there was light leaking out. At some point, Cheng Lingran picked up the bloody thorn on the ground and ruthlessly stabbed it into Jiang Xiu's abdomen. Jiang Xiu felt an intense burning pain. It was as if his entire body was burning. No, it was even more painful than being burned. Burning was from the outside to the inside, but this was from the inside to the outside. His entire blood was burning. Ah! Jiang Xiu suddenly struck Cheng Lingran with his palm, and her entire body slid away. He reached out and grabbed the bloody thorn, and forcefully pulled it out. Blood continuously flowed out. Didn't you say you loved me? Why won't you accompany me in death? Jiang Xiu's face twisted in pain. Why won't you accompany me? Cheng Lingran fell to the ground, and her breath became weaker and weaker. But at this moment, a strange energy fluctuation appeared in the air, and Cheng Lingran's body disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. What happened? Jiang Xiu was so shocked that he forgot about the pain. Someone had taken away his corpse. Such a powerful ability, Jiang Xiu could feel that it came from a very distant place. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Cheng Lingsu. Only she, the divine emperor of the ancestral court, the future Cheng Lingsu, had such an ability. All of this was because of Cheng Lingsu, because of her. Using the Great Fate technique to let him see Cheng Lingran's ugly face, ruthlessly tearing apart the last bit of purity in his heart, Jiang Xiu crazily shouted, "This is what you wanted to see. Are you satisfied now?" Cheng Lingsu was dumbfounded. What's wrong with me? What happened? Jiang Xiu smiled, but his smile was uglier than his crying face. I told you before that Ran Ran was my wife in my previous life. She was my wife who never left me and cared for me in every possible way. Everything that's happening now is all because of you. Cheng Lingsu said, "No, she's definitely not the person you say she is. I said that there must be a mistake somewhere. Fate can be changed, but she won't change her nature. Her nature is like that." Nonsense. Jiang Xiu roared angrily, blood gushing out of his wound because of his agitation. He didn't know why the divine emperor used the Great Fate technique, but he saw it in the end. He saw that his true love was such a vicious and evil person. "You're the executioner. You're the evilest person." Cheng Ling-su couldn't believe it. She shook her head at Jiang Xiu. "What did I do? Why are you accusing me like this?" Jiang Xiu crazily shouted, "You destroyed me." The beautiful memories that had supported him for over 3,000 years, the strength of his spirit, had become an ugly joke from start to finish. Even the insufferably arrogant him, the sect master of Tianqing School, Zhang Luoxia, had become a pitiful worm who was being played by a joke. "Ha ha ha!" Jiang Xiu laughed and turned to leave. This place had nothing to do with him. It was the Divine Emperor's great fate technique that had forcefully dragged him back. Now, it was all over. "Jiang Xiu, where are you going?" Jiang Xiu didn't reply. Instead, he stumbled out. He missed the immortal martial continent. He missed everything there. He wanted to be the insufferably arrogant Zhang Luoxia again. Seeing that Jiang Xiu was about to leave, and that he was seriously injured, Cheng Ling-su chased after him. Jiang Xiu's incomparably terrifying eyes swept over. Su had never seen such a terrifying gaze before. She was stunned for a moment. "Don't follow me. Otherwise, die." Cheng Ling-su only reacted after Jiang Xiu left. He was gone. Perhaps he would never come back. She waited bitterly for a year. She didn't expect that this would be the result. She naively thought that Jiang Xiu had seen Cheng Lingren's true colors and understood this hatred. Then, they would be together. But in the end, Jiang Xiu believed that she was the instigator of everything. Why? Cheng Ling-su was very confused. She couldn't understand why Jiang Xiu would blame everything on her. Also, she didn't understand his words. However, she could feel the heart-wrenching hatred in Jiang Xiu's heart. She felt that she was wronged. "I didn't do anything." What did I do wrong exactly? Cheng Lingren's stab was very deep. Luckily, she was already on the verge of death and the stab wasn't a vital point. It wasn't enough to take Jiang Xiu's life. However, he didn't care at all. He transformed into a beam of light and flew towards the horizon. He didn't turn back. In the cemetery of Jiang City, there was a tombstone with the words, Jiang Xiu, written on it. There was also his portrait. Although there were rumors that Cheng Lingran was killed by Jiang Xiu, most people didn't believe it. Some people said that they had seen Jiang Xiu in the immortal realm. Some people said that they had seen him in the demon realm. There were different opinions. Cheng Lingran had disappeared. This was an indisputable fact. No one in the huge Jiangxiu Empire recognized it. Sun Xiaohong and the Jiang family insisted that Cheng Ling-su should inherit it. She had the corresponding cultivation and ability. Moreover, she had the identity of Cheng Lingren's younger sister in the early stage of Jiangxiu. It could be said that she was justified. However, Cheng Ling-su refused. It wasn't that she wanted to prove to Jiangxiu, who had already left, that she wasn't a greedy and vain woman. It was just that she really wasn't interested. After experiencing so much, she had seen through it. She felt that she had been hurt by fate. She was no longer the naive and willful girl in the past. Nyo, will he come back? Cheng Ling-su came to Jiang City's second high school. This was the place where she had spent the most time with Jiang Xiu. The student union, the sports field, the teaching building, everything was the same as before. She even went to Jiang Xiu's former classroom. Su. Cheng Ling-su widened her eyes in shock. Jiang Xiu was wearing his school uniform and trotting towards her happily. She was stunned. Why was Jiang Xiu here? He looked so childish, like a high school student. She was so happy that she wanted to raise her hand to greet him. However, she realized that he had run past her. Xiao Pei, you must have waited for a long time. I just got here too. That was just a student from second high school. He wasn't Jiang Xiu at all. He greeted a gentle and beautiful female classmate. The girl was a little shy, but the boy secretly held her hand and walked into the forest of the school. Cheng Ling-su smiled bitterly. She had seen wrongly. It turned out that they were a young couple secretly dating. How beautiful! Chung Ling-soo turned around. Her eyes dimmed again. Back then, she could have had a small and fresh relationship with him in this school. However, because of her willfulness, she had wasted the best 3 years. You must be Senior Cheng. A female teacher was a little excited when she saw her. You are? The female teacher explained, I also graduated from second high school. I just got here. I'm 1 year younger than you. You don't know me, but I know you. You're the pride of our school. You're also on the school's celebrity list. Chung Ling-soo said, Is that so? Shall I take you to have a look? Sure. The two of them arrived at the school building. There was a photo hanging on the wall. It was a photo of the more accomplished graduates of the school over the years. What Chung Ling-soo didn't expect was that the first one was Zhang Xiu. He was the top scorer of the college entrance examination in Zhongqing. Later, the news that he was Mr. Jiang caused an earthquake in second high school. He deserved to be ranked first. The photo was an old one. It was a photo of Zhang Xiu when he was young and inexperienced. After all, there was a big difference between him and his later appearance. However, he was still young and inexperienced when he was a student. The school also did this on purpose. It could easily evoke memories. Chung Ling-soo looked at Zhang Xiu in the photo. His eyes were a little self-abased, and his smile was a little shy. At this time, he should still be in his first year of high school. She used to dislike him for not being tall and handsome, but looking at him now, he was quite cute. She couldn't help but reach out and touch the photo, but everything was already in the past. Chapter 479. In the picture, Zhang Xiu had already left Earth and was on his way back to the immortal Martial Continent. His body and mind had suffered a huge blow and were in tatters. He was like a lone wolf licking his bleeding wounds by the edge of a swamp. The great fate art was too powerful. He couldn't resist it at all. Even if he was at his peak, he still couldn't resist. Otherwise, he would have rushed to the ancestral court and turned it upside down. He should ask the Divine Emperor why he used the great fate art. Back then, it was Chung Ling-soo who broke the engagement. Zhang Xiu didn't do anything wrong to her. He was a pitiful person who was abandoned. The winner had no reason to drag out the loser's corpse to whip. She should go and enjoy her happiness. According to Zhang Xiu's timeline, the two had crossed paths more than 3,000 years ago. The Divine Emperor must have lived for an even longer period of time. He must have experienced more people and things. The name Zhang Xiu should have been forgotten long ago. Could it be that he didn't use the great fate art for me? Chung Ling-soo could become the Divine Emperor. Chung Lingren's talent wasn't inferior to hers at all. In fact, she was even more talented than her. Then what level would Chung Lingren reach when she matured? Could it be that the Divine Emperor used the great fate art to deal with Chung Lingren? In the fourth layer, the Divine Emperor stood on a lonely peak. Her feathers fluttered in the wind. Her face was gloomy as she watched Zhang Xiu leave alone. A line of clear tears rolled down her cheeks. Zhang Xiu, why are you leaving? Since you've already seen through Chung Lingren's selfish, greedy, and insidious nature, why didn't you stop and turn around to look at me? Even if it's just a glance. The Divine Emperor's hand covered her heart. The maid on the side said nervously, Divine Emperor, your heartache is acting up again. The divine light in the sky slowly faded. Finally, Zhang Xiu disappeared from sight. No matter how powerful a person was, there would always be a limit to their spells. Zhang Xiu had already flown out of the sky of this universe and entered another world. He had walked this path once before. In his previous life, there was someone who had led him on this path. Although he couldn't remember it, he could still sense the direction of the immortal Martial Continent. Zhang Xiu knew that he would be able to return there sooner or later, but he was a little tired now. Staring at a shattered astral stone, Qin Wantian's silhouette flickered as he appeared on top of it. After that, he sat down cross-legged on top of it. He wanted to recuperate and recuperate, yet he didn't want to delay his journey. This was the best method because in his previous life, the person who brought him to the immortal martial continent would do this when he was tired. This time, Jiang Xiu was meditating mainly to recuperate from his injuries. The hot blood thorn was indeed his nemesis, and the reason was because the longevity rune stone was restrained. If Jiang Xiu had abandoned his divine artifact, he wouldn't have this weakness. However, this weakness was also Jiang Xiu's greatest strength. The laws of this world were something that even the Almighty of the immortal martial continent coveted. Just like the great destiny technique, it existed only in legends. How could Jiang Xiu be willing to abandon it? Moreover, if he abandoned his divine artifact, it would be equivalent to crippling it and starting from scratch. If he wasn't careful, he might even lose his life. Jiang Xiu was recuperating when he heard a strange sound. He opened his eyes. He didn't know how much time had passed. No one could tell him that his injuries were almost completely healed. It's the cosmic flying ship. There were many civilizations in the universe. There were immortal cultivation civilizations, technological civilizations, and even alchemy civilizations. Earth was originally developing towards a technological civilization. If this continued, it wouldn't be difficult for them to travel through the universe. However, the descent of a different world had forcibly changed the direction of immortal cultivation. The flying ship in the distance was like a gigantic cosmic life form. It was a metallic life form. The immortal martial continent also had puppetry and mechanism techniques, but this cosmic flying ship was alive. Its speed was extremely astonishing. They were born to fly in the universe. If they were placed on a plane or a planet, they wouldn't be able to display their abilities at all. Seeing that the flying ship was flying in the same direction, Jiang Xiu hesitated whether he should extend his hand to stop it. If it could give him a ride, it might save him several years or even several decades of time. However, Jiang Xiu's current cultivation wasn't considered strong. If he were to encounter an expert, he might lose his life if he wasn't careful. However, the other party seemed to have seen Jiang Xiu as well. He approached the flying ship. "Subdue 100 energy crystals and I'll give you a ride." He spoke in the most basic divine language. Jiang Xiu didn't know what energy crystals were. On Earth they used money. On the immortal martial continent, they used spirit stones. How could he have energy crystals as a currency? He shook his head. "I don't have money." "Where are you going?" "The immortal martial continent." The other party obviously hadn't heard of it. The immortal martial continent was really too far away. It was on the other side of the universe. Moreover, it was on another plane. It required special star orbits to gather and trigger a change in space-time. If one wanted to go to the immortal martial continent from here, the death rate was infinitely close to 100%. "Never heard of it." "It's on another plane." The other party was somewhat surprised. "Come on up. I'll give you a ride." Okay. Jiang Xiu wasn't afraid. This path was originally extremely dangerous. Whether one could return or not required not only strength and determination, but also some luck. After entering the metallic lifeform's body, it was very spacious inside. Jiang Xiu didn't see anyone, only a shadow. He had never seen such a strange race before. "Thank you." The other party didn't say anything. He was able to let Jiang Xiu onto his flying ship. Of course, he didn't think that Jiang Xiu was a threat. His strength should be above Jiang Xiu's. "You're a god?" Jiang Xiu nodded. "Yes." "Let me know when you need to get off the flying ship." After speaking, the other party fell into a deep sleep. He didn't seem to be able to leave the material world. When he walked, he would stick to the walls or the ground. It was very strange, as if he was liquid. However, Jiang Xiu could feel that he didn't have any ill intentions. In the universe, there were many kind-hearted people who weren't easy to kill. Of course, it was very difficult for this kind of race to survive. Their numbers would become fewer and fewer, but they would still exist. Jiang Xiu felt dizzy today. This should be a kind of kind-hearted, the kind that had a strong ability to survive. Whoosh! The cosmic flying ship traveled through the universe at lightning speed. The power brought about by its super speed crushed the nearby meteorites into pieces before they could hit it. It felt a little like Earth's atmosphere. After more than 10 days, Jiang Xiu sensed the end of this universe and said, "I'm going down." "Okay. Thank you for your help." After Jiang Xiu disembarked from the cosmic flying ship, the metallic life form flew into the distance and disappeared in an instant. A journey that would have taken more than 100 years was reached in just over 10 days. Jiang Xiu felt that his luck had turned a little. Next, he would have to wait for the star orbits to gather and produce an anomaly. No one would deliberately wait. Jiang Xiu could be considered the first person since ancient times. Generally, he would be swept up by undoubtedly. Back then, Jiang Xiu's master had said that he had been swept up by undoubtedly when he came to their world. Moreover, he had survived. "I'll have to depend on my luck." This had nothing to do with strength. It was just a matter of luck. However, Jiang Xiu firmly believed that he would be able to return because he had a similar experience once. After an unknown amount of time, Jiang Xiu waited for the star orbits to gather. He sat in the core area and blocked his 6 senses, not making the slightest bit of resistance. This was the smartest method. Many people would react when they were under external pressure. That would result in an even stronger suppression. Only by going with the flow would he be able to survive. Soon, he felt incomparable dizziness. The intense feeling of weightlessness caused his brain to lose consciousness. His entire body lost all feeling. He lay in the universe like a god that had existed since ancient times. The star orbits revolved and the stars moved. After an unknown amount of time, his body suddenly disappeared into thin air. This sleep, Jiang Xiu felt as if he had slept for thousands of years. A rustling sound came from beside his ears. It was the sound of water droplets. He smelled very fresh air. This was no longer the universe. He slowly opened his eyes. What entered his vision was the azure sky, surrounded by green mountains and clear waters. What a familiar feeling! This place. This is the immortal Martial Continent. Jiang Xiu quickly climbed up from the ground. The familiar feeling of heaven and earth, as well as the surrounding plants and trees. How could he not recognize this place where he had lived for more than 3,000 years? "I'm back. I, Zhang Luoxia, am back again." Jiang Xiu's long hair fluttered in the wind. His entire spirit, energy, and spirit had returned. Although his cultivation base was still very far from his peak, he still had the great destiny art, the great god sealing art, and the world's laws. Tremble in the immortal Martial Continent. Chapter 480. It was still a mystery how wide the immortal Martial Continent was. There were some places that couldn't even be traversed. He really hoped that he could be closer to Qingzhou, where Qianqing School was located. After leaving the mountain, Jiang Xiu entered a nearby ancient city called Yunshan City. In the immortal Martial Continent, there were at least 1,000 cities called Yunshan City, if not 10,000. Jiang Xiu didn't know which province he was in for the time being. Stepping on the limestone bricks of the ancient city, Jiang Xiu thought of his own Qianqing School. He had lived on Earth for 5 or 6 years, then traveled through space and slept for a period of time, at least 10 years. A man wearing a bamboo hat and black clothes walked towards him. He asked, "Brother, what year is this?" The man sized up Jiang Xiu and said, "Holy Calendar 2918. Holy Calendar 2918? Jiang Xiu was stunned. He had left in the year 2858. He had actually left for 60 years, much longer than he had expected. It seemed that he had spent a lot of time sleeping in space. However, this was much faster than he had expected. He had even prepared to spend a few hundred years to return here. 60 years. 60 years. Jiang Xiu thought of something. Qianqing School had a rule that the school head had to appear within 60 years. This was the longest time limit. If the school head didn't appear after this time limit, the school would assume that something had happened to the school head. The school would then elect a new school head to avoid delaying the Qianqing school. If he hurried, he could still keep his position as the Qianqing school's school head. This was his master's greatest expectation for Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu had also worked hard to achieve it. He wouldn't let it go so easily. "Brother, I'll ask again. Which province is this?" "Hanzhou." Zhang Xiu let out a sigh of relief. Hanzhou and Qingzhou were separated by a province. Although they weren't close, it was much better than he had expected. He nodded slightly at Zhang Xiu and said, "Thank you." He looked up at the sky. It was misty and drizzling. According to the season in Hanzhou, it should be spring. He didn't know which year Zhang Xiu left, but it seemed a little cold. It was probably autumn. There were still a few months before the 60th year, so he should have enough time to rush back. He could write a memorial letter and ask the disciples to pick him up, but he had to face a big problem now. His cultivation was gone, and he was a far cry from his peak. The situation in the sect was complicated, and he hadn't come back for 60 years. Those ambitious people hoped that he would never come back, so he couldn't take this risk. The safest way was, of course, to return to Qianqing school after he recovered his strength, but he didn't know how long that would take. In addition, he also needed a lot of cultivation resources that the head of Qianqing school needed. He had to go back to Qianqing school. He soared into the air, turning into a streak of light as he flew off into the distance. A province in the immortal martial continent was much larger than the whole of Earth. He was still in good spirits, so he hurried on. When he reached Deshang, he would see if there was a way to get a flying magic tool. Zhang Xiu was exhausted after a full day's journey. The sky had also darkened, so he settled down in an ancient city. Apart from his weakened cultivation, he had another problem. He didn't have any money on him. As the head of Qianqing school, he obviously didn't need money. He was like a millionaire on Earth, but once he was in trouble, it would also become a big problem. "Porter, take me to the nearest inn." On the immortal martial continent, there were differences between immortals and mortals. Mortals lived in cities and were governed by countries and dynasties, while immortals hid in famous mountains or in natural wonders. The lives of mortals weren't much different from those of ancient times on Earth, but they all knew of the existence of immortals. However, those with immortal roots were 1 in 10,000. The nearby sects would also come to pick disciples, but the number was very small. As an immortal, Zhang Xiu still had an advantage in front of mortals. If he revealed his identity, most people would be respectful and reverent, calling him an immortal. However, Zhang Xiu, like Xiao Xuetong, didn't like to show his face. You want to stay at an inn?" The porter sized up Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu's clothes were still the same as on Earth, but after traveling through the universe for so many years, his clothes had long been tattered. Only the disciples of the Bamboo Ink sect, who were similarly strange, would pay attention to him. This porter really didn't care. "Yes, please." The porter was very unhappy. "You want to take a carriage?" Zhang Xiu's brows wrinkled. "You don't want to take me?" Even if he was the leader of the all-powerful Qianqing school, Zhang Xiu's cultivation could still be considered a young talent, but he was despised by a porter. "Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself?" "You want me to take you?" The porter said. "You came to Luoya City to beg for food and still want to pretend to be a big shot. Let me give you a piece of advice. You don't fit here, and this place can't accommodate you. Go back to where you came from." "Pauper." Zhang Xiu's expression didn't change. Indeed, he was now a pauper. If he couldn't rush back to the Qianqing school before the deadline, he would lose everything. Before on Earth, he didn't care about financial power, but here, he cared very much. It was his lifeblood. Without the throne of the Qianqing school, he would lose a large number of cultivation resources. More importantly, he would also fail to live up to his master's cultivation. "Go away, don't block my business." Zhang Xiu said, "You're looking down on me." "Yes, I'm looking down on you. What can you do? If you have the guts, throw money at me." Behind him was a brothel with red lights and green lights. From time to time, there were guests coming in and out. Seeing a beggar arguing with a porter, the guard at the door came over to chase them away. "Go away, what are you arguing about? Get lost." The porter hurriedly said, "Sir, it's not that I want to quarrel, it's this beggar who's looking for trouble." "Boy, I think you're tired of living." The porter was very angry. He had offended the guard for no reason. He stretched out his hand as if he wanted to fight with Jiang Xiu. Another porter hurriedly came over and said, "Little brother, don't quarrel with him. Are you looking for a place to stay? I'll take you there." Jiang Xiu said, "Yes. I'll pull you." As he spoke, he pulled his bicycle over and gestured for Jiang Xiu to get on. Jiang Xiu coldly glanced at the porter and got on the bicycle. "Let's go." The young man said, "Little brother, the price of our inns in Loya City is not low. If you want to find a place to stay, it's better to stay in my house for a night." Jiang Xiu had no money. This young man was very kind to let him stay. "What's your name?" "My surname is Qian, called Qian Zhen." Jiang Xiu said, "Thank you, Qian Zhen." Qian Zhen's home was a broken house. There was an old man at home. When he saw Qian Zhen bring a friend back, he was very enthusiastic. He cooked 2 dishes and also made some of his own wine. "Jiang Xiu, the house is only so big. I'll leave the big bed for you to sleep. I'll squeeze in with my father for a night." Jiang Xiu said, "Good." "Qian Zhen, what do you wish for?" Qian Zhen said, "Wish. It's nothing. This house is rented outside the Tao Yuan. When I save enough money, I hope to buy it. In the future, I can open my own bicycle shop. Then, I will have no regrets in this life. Then, I have saved 100 silver coins." He took out a wooden box from the bedside and opened it for Jiang Xiu to see. Jiang Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. To be so sincere to a stranger, it was really simple. Jiang Xiu looked at the 100 silver coins and his eyes lit up. This scene was just seen by Qian Zhen's father. That night, after Qian Zhen arranged for Jiang Xiu to rest, he went to his father's side room and saw his father pulling a long face. "What's wrong?" Qian Zhen's father said, "You are too trusting. Do you know what kind of person he is? You dare to show him the money. You can't show your wealth. No, although Jiang Xiu is poor, he should be a good person. How could he be greedy for other people's money? If you don't listen to your elders, you will suffer." Qian Zhen didn't think so, but the thing that made Qian Zhen endlessly regret happened. When he got up the next day, Jiang Xiu was gone from the big bed in the outer room. When he walked out of the courtyard, he was also gone. Gone? Qian Zhen's heart skipped a beat. He immediately ran back to the bedside and took out the box. When he opened it, the broken silver coins inside were all gone. It was completely empty. It was a full 100 silver coins. The money he had saved for more than 10 years was all gone. Qian Zhen was dumbstruck. His heart sank to the bottom and regret filled his heart. "AI!" He fiercely slapped his head. "What's wrong?" Qian Zhen's father came out of the room and saw the empty box on the ground. His eyes widened and he shouted, "Where's the silver?" Chapter 481. Silver, my silver. Qian Zhen's father cried out. For a poor family to buy a house with 100 taels of silver, it was even more difficult than saving money to buy a house on earth. The old man burst into tears on the spot. He was still hoping to sell the house and marry a wife for his son to carry on the family line. "It's gone, it's all gone." Hearing the cries of the heavens and earth, the neighbors all ran over. They stood at the door and began to chatter. Several disheartened aunts walked into the yard and asked, "What happened to Qian Zhen's father?" "Silver, all of the silver is gone?" Qian Zhen's father recounted what happened yesterday. Qian Zhen crouched in front of the door with his head in his hands. He regretted his actions, but the price was too great. The money was stolen? Ha ha ha. A very discordant voice was heard as a tall and strong man walked over. It was the person who had quarreled with Jiang Xiu at the brothel's entrance last night. I've already told you, that person is not a good person at first glance. He has no money and even needs to call a taxi. Chen Zhen, now you believe in your brother's eyes. The people on the side asked, Wei Sun, what the hell is going on? The man said, yesterday, a beggar came and asked me to take him to an inn. I could tell at a glance that he wasn't a good person. I wanted to beat him up, but Chen Zhen pretended to be a good person and stopped me. Chen Zhen even took him home to spend the night. In the end, the wind blew away an eggshell and his many years of savings went down the drain. The people on the side sighed and said, he met a bad person. Wei Sun said, how is this meeting a bad person? This is simply the result of being a good person. Am I an evil person who bullies a beggar and Chen Zhen is a good person? Pretending to be righteous, I spit. An auntie said, okay, let's not talk about it. Chen Zhen's lesson this time is tragic enough. I don't think he'll dare to pretend to be a good person in the future. How could they have any money to steal now? There were those who sympathized with the Chen family, those who mocked them, and those who took pleasure in their misfortune. Chen Zhen only hugged his head as his body trembled. He had spent more than 10 years of pure money, waking up early and working late every day. In the past, he was able to endure it because of his age. But now, he was in his 20s. In another 10 years, he would be 40. How would he be able to buy a house, marry, and have children? Have you reported this to the authorities? Go and report this to the authorities. The people from the government soon arrived. The Chen family placed all their hopes on the official. The official was very arrogant. He rode a tall horse and wore a red cloak. Inside, he wore a brocade robe with accessories hanging from his waist. He didn't even get off the horse. He just sat on the horse and asked questions, giving people a great sense of oppression. Who is that? Chen Zhen said. He said he was a passing guest and introduced himself as Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu? Jiang Luoxia was famous in the cultivation world, but Jiang Xiu's name was only known by his master and a few of his fellow disciples when he first entered Tianqing school. Outsiders didn't know that Jiang Xiu was Jiang Luoxia. Did he say where he was from? The father and son of the Chen family knew that the possibility of getting the money back was very small. The other party stole the money and didn't leave immediately. He didn't say anything. Then, how do you want us to investigate? Chen Zhen and his son helplessly lowered their heads. They were really unlucky. Father Chen was so angry that he picked up the shoulder pole and was about to hit his son. Are you talking about me? Suddenly, a voice sounded. They saw a man in brocade robes slowly walking over. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his face was perfect as if it was carved by a knife. Especially his eyes, they seemed to emit light. It was like he was a god. It's you. Give me back my money. Father Chen and Chen Zhen rushed over. Father Chen used the shoulder pole to threaten Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu faintly smiled and said, Father Chen, don't worry. Here, I'll give you back. He took out 2 pieces of paper from his chest and handed them over. You dare to play with me? You want to exchange 2 pieces of paper for 100 taels of silver? Jiang Xiu said, if you can't read, then find someone who can. These 2 pieces of paper are land deeds. One is for your house, and the other is for the Fu Cart Company. That night, Jiang Xiu couldn't sleep in Chen Zhen's bed. Spiritual cultivation had suffered many blows on earth, but he had never been poor. The dirty and messy bed made him uncomfortable. As a result, he got up, but he didn't have any money. He borrowed money from Chen Zhen and went to a brothel. There was a casino in the brothel, so he casually won some money and stayed in the brothel for the night. Wow, what? Chen Zhen was stunned. He took the land deed from Jiang Xiu. He could still understand some of the common words. This house will be yours in the future. The Fu Cart Company will also be yours in the future. This. Just a moment ago, they had treated Jiang Xiu as their greatest enemy. But now, the father and son were completely dumbfounded. This house was still all right. It was worth about 200 taels. The main thing was that the Da Fu Carriage Company had dozens of carriages and dozens of drivers. Chen Zhen worked in this carriage company. Didn't this mean that he had become the boss of this carriage company? This is too precious. I can't accept it. Zhang Xiu laughed. This is what you deserve. I, Zhang Xiu, never owe anyone a favor. It's rare for you to lend me a helping hand when I'm down and out. I think it's too light. If Zhang Xiu had returned to Qianqing School and was still sitting on the throne of Qianqing School's sovereign, he would have thought of making Chen Zhen an emperor. Accept it. Zhang Xiu's eyes swept over and saw Wei Sun, who had humiliated him yesterday. The latter was already stunned. Just a moment ago, he was still mocking and ridiculing Chen Zhen for being a good person. In the end, he was slapped in the face. Congratulations, Chen Zhen. Father Chen, your family is rich. Father Chen and Chen Zhen were pleasantly surprised. They never thought that a moment of kindness would be exchanged for such a big return. Thank you, thank you. When the official saw Zhang Xiu's extraordinary bearing, he got down from his horse and asked, "Who are you?" Zhang Xiu said, "I'm just passing by." "Are you an immortal?" Zhang Xiu smiled indifferently. He turned around and said to Chen Zhen, "Goodbye." After that, he turned around and flew away, instantly turning into a ray of light. Immortal, he's really an immortal. Hua, a commotion instantly broke out. Everyone present, even that awe-inspiring official who was draped in a cloak, fell to their knees and kowtowed incessantly. These people's reverence for immortals came from the depths of their bones and souls. Zhang Xiu is actually an immortal. Everyone present was envious. Chen Zhen is really lucky to have taken in an immortal. Wei Sun's face was already pale. He had offended an immortal. The way the people around him looked at him changed. It was as if he had become moldy and everyone was avoiding him. With money, Zhang Xiu's journey was easy. He crossed mountains and rivers. When he was tired, he could enter the ancient city to eat and drink. He had enough energy to continue his journey. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Zhang Xiu entered the border of Hangzhou. This place was more troublesome. It was impossible to fly across the continuous mountains in a day. He could only stay in the mountains for the night. The continuous mountains were bound to be filled with demons. Unless there was a large sect here, it was a dangerous place. Ordinary rogue cultivators couldn't pass through. Zhang Xiu's realm was also quite dangerous. If he was unlucky and encountered a great demon, he would definitely be killed. In order to avoid risks, he flew for nearly 20 hours. When he was really tired, he landed in the mountains and took out some dry food to eat. In the distant horizon, 2 extremely fast lights were shooting. Zhang Xiu's heart immediately tightened. They were cultivators at the celestial immortal realm, which was equivalent to the god of heaven. My luck isn't too good? But when Zhang Xiu took a closer look, he couldn't help but feel relieved. The two weren't in the same group, but were enemies. One was a human and one was a demon. The demon's demonic aura soared to the sky, while the human was an immortal dressed in white. Great celestial immortal. Although Zhang Xiu's cultivation was gone, his vision was still there. When he saw the two fighting, he was shocked. Their cultivation was actually very high. They were actually great celestial immortals. With this kind of cultivation, they would be top experts in any province in the immortal martial continent. Even when Zhang Xiu was at his peak, he was only at this level. He was barely higher than them. Why are they fighting? At this level of great celestial immortal, whether human or demon, they were all famous people on the continent. Unless there was a huge conflict, they wouldn't kill each other. Chapter 482. A battle between grand celestial immortals. Moreover, it was between a human and a demon. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be too much interaction between them. Zhang Xiu's first thought was to fight over the treasure. Only the appearance of a rare treasure could possibly cause two grand celestial immortals to fight. Di Chongqing, I must obtain the demon core of a celestial immortal. If you hand it over, I can spare your life. That female celestial immortal's tone was extremely arrogant, causing Zhang Xiu to be somewhat speechless. The demon core of a demon was the same as the life-divine weapon of a god cultivator. If he handed over the demon core, his cultivation would be gone. What was the difference between that and taking his life? This female Taoist is truly ferocious. Zhang Xiu curiously sized her up. The immortal martial continent was truly too big, and there were simply too many sections. Zhang Xiu couldn't possibly know all of them. However, Zhang Xiu truly knew who this person in front of him was. That old ancestor behind the Jialan dynasty, one of the few loose immortals in the immortal martial continent. Zhang Xiu seemed to recall that her name seemed to be Xuelingyun. Zhang Xiu had also long heard of this person's great name. She had become famous much earlier than Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu was one of the most popular experts in the immortal martial continent in the recent 1,000 years, while the other party was a veteran expert. However, she was one of the 8 most famous loose immortals in the immortal martial continent. Loose immortals were unaffiliated cultivators who didn't belong to any sect. Loose immortals were a very unique race in the immortal martial continent. These people had a unique characteristic: they were either ridiculously strong or ridiculously weak. Very few of them were in the middle. This was because loose immortals didn't belong to any sect, and thus, they had no backing. It was very difficult for them to survive. And this person in front of him was undoubtedly ridiculously strong. When Zhang Xiu was at his peak, he was naturally stronger than her by a level. However, she was in existence even older than him. According to Zhang Xiu's knowledge, the Jialan dynasty had been established in Jia Prefecture for tens of thousands of years. When Zhang Xiu was still a young minor repairs immortal in the Chenqing school, he had already heard of the Jialan dynasty in Jia Prefecture. As expected of his reputation, he actually dared to directly ask for a demon core from a celestial immortal. However, it seemed that the great demon wasn't simple either. The two of them were locked in battle. On the surface, the greater demon named Di Chongqing seemed to have the upper hand. The black smoke coming out of his saber was accompanied by crackling electric currents. It was as if even the void was being sliced apart. Many demonic cores were materials for refining top-grade Dharma artifacts and elixirs. Some demonic cores could even be used to save lives. Xuelingyun was here for the demonic cores, and her goal was none other than these. Di Chongqing, this name sounds a little familiar. In the immortal martial continent, it could be said that demons and immortals were one side of righteousness and one side of evil. Since ancient times, demons had always wanted to kill and harm others, while immortals were born to protect humans. Hence, the two sides couldn't coexist. Even now, there were still some old fogies who used this as an excuse. However, Zhang Xiu didn't see it this way. What was righteous and what was evil? Maybe he had heard about it from an old friend. This was definitely a grand battle that was rarely seen. No matter where it was, it would surely cause a huge commotion. Although Zhang Xiu was the one who witnessed it, this wasn't a good thing either. There were some things that experts weren't willing to let others know. And the consequences of knowing this would be extremely dire. If things didn't turn out well, they might even be silenced. Sky desolation / Di Chongqing's entire body was shrouded in black smoke. His sword flashed as his silhouette was so fast that it left no traces behind. Demons, compared to humans and gods, had a lower level of comprehension towards weapons. This was especially so for the Tao of the sword. It was more dependent on one's physique and innate techniques. It was truly extremely rare for someone to be able to cultivate the Tao of the sword to such a level. Rip! A black-colored sword light flashed, leaving behind a sword beam of light that was over 1,000 meters long, forcibly splitting the sky apart. Di Chongqing's countenance drastically changed as he abruptly inclined his head. A blurry white silhouette flashed as Xuelingyun's slender white hand blasted out. Imperial Qi cover the vast sky. With a boom, a violent palm force blasted out. At this moment, Even Zhang Xiu, who was far away on the ground, could feel an incomparably intense pressure. Only then did he see a burst of energy gushing out from her palm, blotting out the sky with resplendent light. It was like a pillar of light. When the powerful shockwave came crashing down, even the trees that were tens of meters tall were bent over from the pressure. Damn! Zhang Xiu couldn't help but curse. Right now, he was just a tender little fellow in front of these two great gods. If it wasn't for the fact that they were so far away, this palm strike might have even threatened Zhang Xiu's life. He immediately rushed towards the distance. He saw a cave over there. With a swoosh, he dived into it. The moment he entered, he heard a loud boom outside. The place he was at earlier had collapsed by tens of meters. Looking down from the sky, it was a gigantic palm imprint. Strong. Judging from Zhang Xiu's previous height, the power of Xuelingyun's palm strike was really amazing. Even Zhang Luoxia, who was at the great celestial immortal realm, couldn't take it head-on. The 8 great individual immortals weren't just for show. When he looked up again, the two of them had already exchanged dozens of blows in the sky. The earth-shattering movements were as if the sky and earth were collapsing. However, Zhang Xiu watched carefully and frowned tightly. Although he had some friendship with some great demons, he was still a human after all. In his heart, he was still biased towards Xuelingyun's victory. Moreover, when he was still a disciple of Qianqing School, there was a year when the Qianqing School celebration was held. The Jialan dynasty also sent a prince to congratulate them. Zhang Xiu remembered very clearly that it was his master who came out to welcome them. They could be considered to have some interactions. However, Xuelingyun was in a very bad situation. She was very strong. This might have something to do with the fact that she had been in a superior position for a long time and hadn't fought with others for too long. She had been attacking with all her might, but she just couldn't take her down. If she couldn't take her down after a long time, she would definitely lose. It could be said that Xuelingyun was already showing signs of defeat. Damn! Di Chongqing's eyes burst out with a terrifying red light. He uncharacteristically used his sword to meet Xuelingyun's shocking palm. With a boom, the two forces fiercely collided. Light flashed, and a trace of panic appeared on Xuelingyun's face. "Little girl, you've already used up all your methods, but this king has yet to use my methods." "Humph." Xuelingyun coldly snorted. The magic power in her palm suddenly spat out, pressing down on the long sword. The light became even more dazzling. "Stop struggling. You've already lost. You know it in your heart. Ha ha ha. The flesh of a great celestial immortal is very delicious to devour. This king's cultivation will definitely rise to another level. Dream on." Xuelingyun mumbled something. Her left hand formed a sword and pressed against the back of her right hand, drawing a mysterious rune. But just as the rune was about to be completed, she saw Di Chongqing's mouth abruptly open. A violent beam of light shot out like a rocket launcher. The innate talent of the demon race revealed its superiority at this moment. Xuelingyun couldn't dodge in time. She saw the fierce beam of light instantly penetrating her body. Her face revealed a painful expression. Her entire body seemed to have lost all strength and fell down. However, Di Chongqing seemed to be unable to control this powerful divine ability. The strong beam of light continued to burst out from his mouth. He couldn't stop it even if he wanted to. From the looks of it, although this divine ability was powerful, it was somewhat clumsy. Perhaps this was the reason why Xuelingyun dared to use her full strength. Damn it! Zhang Xiu couldn't help but curse. When Xuelingyun fell from the sky, she lost control of her body and was blown by the wind. Coincidentally, she fell in the area where Zhang Xiu was, just tens of meters in front of him. At this moment, he finally saw clearly. Her clothes were as white as snow and there were feathers on her head. She was truly beautiful. Especially her figure, it was even more curvaceous when she fell to the ground. It was as if she was showing Zhang Xiu some unfathomable heavenly secret. Her towering chest was still heaving up and down with great effort. She was still alive. What should I do? Zhang Xiu didn't even have time to hesitate. Di Chongqing would soon come down to finish the job and collect the spoils of war. If Jiang Xiu didn't save her now, he wouldn't have the chance. Because of the incident with the 2 pearls of the Cheng family, Jiang Xiu's feelings were not small. He was somewhat resistant to females, especially when the time between them was not far. His anger had yet to dissipate. However, an animal would always be an animal. He rushed over without any hesitation. He carried Xuelingyun and flew away in a flash. This mountain was definitely Di Chongqing's territory. If Jiang Xiu stayed in the vicinity, especially near the battlefield, Di Chongqing would quickly find him. He had to leave as soon as possible and find a place with a water source. It would be easier for him to hide Xingzong. Xuelingyun, who was in his arms, had already fainted. Chapter 483. The mountain region was vast, and the forest was dense. It wasn't easy to find a person, especially for someone like Jiang Xiu who was experienced in the martial world. He knew which places weren't easy to find. After hurrying for a while, they saw several continuous waterfalls. Looking from afar, it looked like a water dragon plunging into the mountain. The sound of water filled the sky and earth. He immediately jumped down with Xuelingyun and passed through the water. The water curtain blocked the line of sight, the sound of water disturbed the sound, and the water vapor covered the smell. It was an excellent hiding spot. The only drawback was that it was a little too conspicuous. However, the mountain was so big that it wasn't easy to notice this place. "How are you?" Xuelingyun had completely fainted and lost consciousness. Jiang Xiu grabbed her pulse and felt it. Jiang Xiu was a decent alchemist. To become an alchemist, one had to have a certain level of understanding of pharmacology and pathology. Unexpectedly, although her entire body was penetrated by the strong light and she did suffer some internal injuries, it was far from being incurable as Jiang Xiu thought. It looked like Xuelingyun should have activated a protective secret art at the last moment and protected her heart meridians. Jiang Xiu searched her body without holding back. Generally speaking, one would definitely bring alchemical pills when going out, especially when facing an expert. With this search, he found a small storage pouch from her waist. With a shake, the bottles and jars inside all fell out. Yellow dragon pill, 100 grass immortal pill, gold essence pill. These alchemical pills would be a huge fortune in the hands of anyone. Even if it was in Jiang Xiu's hands now, it would be enough for him to exchange for future cultivation resources. The grand ancestor of the Jialan Empire was indeed generous. Found it. Clear bone jade fluid. Jiang Xiu picked her up and gently opened her small, bloody mouth. He poured the clear bone jade fluid into her mouth. The fluid emitted a tempting fragrance. After taking a whiff, Jiang Xiu felt refreshed. The fragrance was very strong, but Jiang Xiu wasn't worried about being discovered. The surroundings were all covered by water vapor. After feeding her the medicine, Jiang Xiu helped her to sit cross-legged and comb the meridians in her hands. There was an external divine power entering her body. The abnormal feeling made Xuelingyun react a little. She opened her red lips slightly, and a strange moan came out of her nose. It seemed like she wanted to struggle. "Don't move. I'm treating your injuries." Perhaps his words had an effect, or perhaps Xuelingyun's consciousness was still completely muddled. Her internal injuries were still very serious. Jiang Xiu used the Chenqing school's secret technique to tease her for a few hours. He only stopped when Jiang Xiu was a little tired. Spiritual cultivation was to strengthen oneself and heal external injuries. Unless it was a healing-type Protoss, it was very weak. In this aspect, it still couldn't be compared to the neutral and peaceful immortal cultivation. The secret technique also changed under his divine power, and its effects weren't as outstanding. In addition, when he carried Xue Tianxian through the waterfall, her entire body was wet. Her clothes stuck to her body, and her sparkling, snow-like skin was exposed. This also greatly interfered with the will of spiritual cultivation. "Water, water!" Jiang Xiu cupped a bit of water in his hand and brought it to her mouth. The famous Xuelingyun actually stuck out her tongue and licked because she couldn't drink it. She was like a little domestic dog. If she remembered this after waking up, she would definitely kill Jiang Xiu to silence him. After drinking the water, she peacefully fell asleep. Seeing that her condition had stabilized, Jiang Xiu ran outside. There seemed to be a big commotion outside. Many demons appeared, flying in the sky and crawling on the ground. If he wasn't wrong, that Di Chongqing had sent his subordinates to search for Xueling Yun. This made Jiang Xiu frown. It seemed that Di Chongqing was very confident in his attack. He actually guessed that Xueling Yun's injuries were so serious that she couldn't escape from this mountain. This was troublesome. After all, this was his territory. If he sent so many demons to search, they would be discovered sooner or later. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu began to set up a formation outside the area they were in. Although these demons' intelligence wasn't low, their understanding of formations was close to zero. Only a small number of intelligent demons would know. This wasn't difficult for them, but it was too annoying. Formations were too difficult for human immortal cultivators to learn. The main thing was that it was too detailed and troublesome. Once one learned it, it would be even more difficult to understand and would take up a lot of cultivation time. If it wasn't for the fact that Jiang Xiu had to have a certain level of understanding of formations in order to fight for the position of Qianqing School's headmaster, he definitely wouldn't have learned it. But after learning it, it was very useful. It added a bit of talent to the name Jiang Luoxia. What he was setting up now wasn't any complicated formation. Firstly, his cultivation base wasn't high enough. Secondly, wouldn't it cost him 300 taels of silver to set up a formation? He was playing with a small illusion formation that would make them lose their sense of direction and take a detour, thinking that they had searched this area. Not long after he finished setting it up, Jiang Xiu returned to the waterfall cave and saw a group of demons outside. They looked around and even used their noses to sniff around. Some demons had extremely sensitive noses. Even the water vapor in the air couldn't be suppressed. Although they felt that something was amiss, they didn't see anything. After they searched the area, they turned around and flew away. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. In truth, at that moment, Jiang Xiu's killing intent surged forth. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to deal with ordinary demons. Moreover, if he was discovered, Di Chongqing would arrive in an instant. His life would be in danger at any moment. Amen. Suddenly, there was movement behind him. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw Xueling Yun pressing on her wound and propping herself up. Her face was pale and her lips were dry. "You were the one who saved this lord?" "Sure, be softer." After spending 5 to 6 years on Earth, Jiang Xiu had already thrown away most of his arrogance as a sect leader. When he first came to Earth, he was always putting on airs and would often call himself this lord. The Xueling Yun in front of him was just a replica of him. Actually, it was very tiring to put on airs. He just wanted to increase his aura. Xueling Yun obediently shut her mouth. "You're awake. How do you feel?" Xueling Yun said, "This lord is fine." Jiang Xiu couldn't help but laugh. "It's very tiring to put on airs. Actually, your injuries weren't light. When I was healing you, she was like a helpless lamb." Xueling Yun's expression changed. She lowered her head and looked at her clothes. She actually reached out and grabbed her collar. No matter how strong a woman was, she would always show a weak side in this aspect. "What did you do to me?" Jiang Xiu said, "What did I do to you? Can't you feel it?" Xueling Yun's expression became even more unsightly. "You took advantage of me?" "Despicable." As she spoke, she raised her palm. Her palm instantly shone with a white light. That white light was enough to split gold and break jade. She was actually about to attack Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu said, "Hey, what are you feeling? Did you have some kind of dream that you shouldn't have and you're blaming it on me?" "Nonsense." Jiang Xiu said, "Don't worry, I didn't touch you at all. I was just helping you heal." Xueling Yun half believed and half doubtfully turned around. With her back facing Jiang Xiu, she rolled up her sleeves and took a look. Only then did she feel relieved and turned around. "This lord misunderstood you. Little fellow, What's your name? Little fellow? Zhang Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had more than 3,000 years of cultivation and was the sect master of Tianqing school. With his seniority, many Tianqing school disciples had to call him ancestor when they saw him. Now, he was actually being called a little fellow. However, Xuelingyun was indeed his senior. My name is Zhang Xiu. Xuelingyun said, Zhang Xiu, this lord will remember your name. If we can escape this disaster this time, I will definitely repay you 10-fold, 100-fold. Zhang Xiu only smiled faintly. If he could return to Tianqing school and become the sect master again, the small Jialan dynasty wouldn't be worth mentioning at all. There was no need for him to repay her. If he really lost the position of sect master, the small Jialan dynasty wouldn't be able to help him. Which sect are you from? Zhang Xiu said, Tianqing school. He blurted it out in a moment. After saying it, Zhang Xiu felt a bit of regret. Tianqing school? That's a big sect. Tianqing school also has divine cultivators? Zhang Xiu said, aren't I one? There will be more in the future. He had the highest spiritual cultivation technique in his hands, the Great God Sealing technique. This was already far above Tianqing school's immortal cultivation technique. After he returned, he would definitely recruit spiritual cultivation disciples and strengthen Tianqing school. It seems that Sect Master Ji will make a big move after inheriting the position. Sect Master Ji? Which Sect Master? Zhang Xiu's heart thumped. The Ji Dao sect. Are you really from Tianqing school or not? You don't even know the name of your own sect master? Zhang Xiu's head buzzed. The Ji Dao sect had always been his biggest rival for the position of sect master. There was no reason for the elders to let him inherit the position of sect master in less than 60 years. The Tianqing school's sect master is Zhang Luoxia. Zhang Luoxia. Sect master Zhang has been missing for many years. Some people say he's dead. The Ji Dao sect ascended the position more than 10 years ago. How could this be? Seeing Zhang Xiu's dazed expression, Xuelingyun said, You should have left the sect for a long time, right? You don't even know that the sect master has changed? Zhang Xiu wanted to tell her loudly that he was Zhang Luoxia, but the words stopped at the tip of his tongue. If the Ji Dao sect found out that he was still alive and that his strength had greatly decreased, they would definitely take his life. Cheng Lingsu, you've harmed me. Chapter 484. The first of the 3,000 Daras, the Great Fate Technique, had brought him back to his youth. It was indeed unimaginable and shocking, but it had caused Zhang Xiu to give up the position of sect leader that he had spent so much effort on, stepping over mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and sacrificing countless people. When Zhang Xiu had ascended to the position of sect leader, he had said to his fellow disciples who had died for him, that they could all rest in peace. But now, how could he let them rest in peace? He was even more ashamed to face his master who had placed such high hopes on him. Lost, lost. Xuelingyun said, Lost? What do you mean lost? Are you feeling sad because your Zhang Luoxia lost the position of sect leader? Forget it, little guy, you should take care of yourself. How can you care about something like changing the sect leader? Zhang Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he couldn't care, who could? Zhang Xiu didn't say anything. Xuelingyun, who had always been high and mighty, also couldn't put down her pride to comfort him. She had only spoken a few words to him because Zhang Xiu had saved her. Otherwise, with Zhang Xiu's level, it would be a blessing accumulated from 8 lifetimes for her to even look at him. Now, Zhang Xiu was only an upper earth god. Above him were the heavenly gods, which were also divided into 3 stages. Lower heavenly gods, middle heavenly gods, upper heavenly gods, and above them was the great heavenly gods, which was the perfection stage of deity. There was a difference of 5 minor levels, a difference of 3 major levels. At first, it didn't sound like a big difference, but in reality, in the eyes of the immortal martial continent's cultivators, this difference was 108,000 times. A difference of 1 minor level could be instantly killed, and the further one progressed, the greater the difference. This was because the power of one's level increased geometrically. If the difference between a lower heavenly god and a middle heavenly god was 10 times, then the difference between a lower heavenly god and upper heavenly god was 10 times, and the difference between a lower heavenly god and upper heavenly god was hundreds of millions of times. Similarly, the difficulty of cultivation was just as great as the difference in strength. Therefore, in Xuelingyun's eyes, Jiang Xiu was just a little guy. At her level, she could kill the current Jiang Xiu with a flick of her finger. The sound of the heavenly waterfall was extremely loud, the water cascading downwards. From afar, the sunlight cascaded down, merging together with the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth, causing the waterfall to glow with resplendent rainbow-colored light. The scene was extremely beautiful. However, in Jiang Xiu's eyes, the world was black and white. At this moment, he felt like he was back 3,000 years ago, when he was brought to the immortal martial continent by his master. He couldn't see a trace of hope and could only treat everything with indifference. "Hey, little guy, do you have anything to eat?" Jiang Xiu looked back and saw Xuelingyun sitting cross-legged with her back straight. Her beautiful eyes fell on Jiang Xiu. "Don't you have any fasting pills on you?" Xuelingyun shook his head. An expert of her level would definitely carry it with her. Only a commoner like Jiang Xiu would be unable to rid himself of his greed for food. "I'll go out and hunt some game." Xuelingyun moved her lips. "Don't worry, if I were to betray you, I wouldn't have saved you." Xuelingyun continued, "That's not what I meant. I just want you to be more careful. Di Chongqing wouldn't give up on searching for you." After leaving the waterfall, he glanced at the fish swimming in the pond. He hesitated for a moment and gave up on the idea of fishing. It was better to hunt small wild beasts. Maybe there would be some fish in the water that would report to Di Chongqing. In the mountains, he hunted a wild wolf. He only chopped off 2 of its legs and buried the corpse. These 2 wolf legs could last him for a few days if he used them sparingly. When Jiang Xiu returned to the waterfall, Xuelingyun was in a fluster. Jiang Xiu hurriedly turned around and saw that Xuelingyun's clothes were undone, revealing her pure white back. He could faintly see the beautiful outline of her chest. So it turned out that there was a sword wound on her lower ribs. Jiang Xiu didn't notice it. This couldn't be blamed on Jiang Xiu's carelessness. It was just that this sword wound was strange. It wasn't a sharp cut with blood flowing out. Instead, it was a little charred. Di Chongqing's special sword appeared in his mind. "So, sorry." Jiang Xiu apologized like a virgin. Although he saved her, these cultivators had strange temperaments. If they were to avoid such things, they might even kill him out of anger. Xuelingyun's strength was weak now. She wasn't really hungry. She only sent Jiang Xiu away to check her wound. However, her injury was far more complicated than she imagined. She was born in a noble family and was a genius since young. She abided by etiquette and had never crossed the line with men. She wholeheartedly pursued the Tao. Now that Jiang Xiu saw something he shouldn't see, she was both shocked and angered. However, the sword poison in her body was acting up and she didn't have the slightest bit of strength. She tried to button her clothes several times but failed. Xuelingyun was both embarrassed and angry. Initially, she felt that Jiang Xiu was a good person. But now, he actually spied on her. What she was more worried about was that the lust of men would be ignited and explode like a bomb. Demons would instantly possess her body and do things like beasts. She had no way to resist. In her panic, she actually fainted on the ground. "Oi, oi!" Jiang Xiu heard the commotion. She seemed to have fainted, but he didn't dare to be sure. After calling out a few times and getting no response, he turned around and saw that she had fainted on the ground. "Should I save her or not? If I save her, I'll definitely offend her and she might really kill me. It's too foolish to sacrifice your life for the pagoda. If I don't save her, Xuelingyun might lose her life. Should I save her, or should I save her?" Jiang Xiu was truly curious. What sword did she use? Why was it so strange? It actually managed to fool his eyes. Save her, At most I'll just flee later. He inspected her wound. Under her snow-white skin, there was a charred blackness. The problem wasn't that it was charred, but rather, it was more like it was colored. The law of darkness is contained within the wound. It seems to be caused by the Black Fault Sword. Could it be the Black Fault Sword? The Black Fault Sword was one of the 13 famed swords of the immortal martial continent. It contained the complete law of darkness within. This is troublesome. Zhang Xiu muttered to himself. If it was in the past, he really wouldn't have a solution. But now, he had the law of this world and could directly summon the law of darkness. He mumbled something, and a golden light flashed from his finger. He tapped on Xuelingyun's wound, and the surging black aura stopped. Time seemed to have stopped at that spot. Zhang Xiu sliced the wound open, and the intense black aura gushed out. There were probably no more than 5 people in the entire immortal martial continent who didn't rely on their cultivation level and used medical techniques to treat a complete law of darkness. Now, Zhang Xiu was one of them. Chi. The black aura gushed out continuously, and only stopped after a few seconds. Only then did the skin return to normal, and blood flowed out. Originally, there was only one wound, but later he realized he was wrong. Xuelingyun had more than 10 sword wounds all over her body. The one just now was the most serious, and the rest were just small wounds. But because of the complete law of darkness, it was impossible to not treat it. Originally, with Xuelingyun's cultivation level, she could have destroyed the invading power. But with her injuries so severe, it was impossible to not rely on external forces. In the end, Zhang Xiu cut more than 10 wounds on her body, and used the same method to cleanse the law of darkness. He then found the jade skin plaster from her elixirs. After doing all this, Zhang Xiu made a fire, cleaned up the wolf's leg, and slowly roasted it. Late at night, Zhang Xiu heard the commotion and said, "The force from your sword wounds has been released. You should be fine now." When he turned his head to look at Xuelingyun, their eyes met. Xuelingyun's pale face actually flushed red. Zhang Xiu understood that she was abnormal. He was quite worried that this high and mighty ancestor of the Jialan dynasty would go berserk and kill someone. From the looks of it now, that shouldn't happen. Xuelingyun said softly, "You know how to treat He Kei's sword wounds?" "I don't." Zhang Xiu smiled, a blind cat pretending to be a dead mouse. The fire burned brightly, and the firewood inside crackled, making the surroundings very warm. This place was only so big, and Xuelingyun accidentally met Zhang Xiu's eyes again. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and she turned her head away. Zhang Xiu was a bit embarrassed. "Didn't you say you were hungry? I brought some wolf meat for you to eat." Xuelingyun agreed and took it. She took small bites and said with a frown, "Why is there no taste?" "You didn't put salt?" Zhang Xiu laughed. "You are the high and mighty ancestor of the dynasty. How would you know the suffering of us commoners? It's good enough to have something to eat." Xuelingyun's expression changed slightly. These words were a bit harsh to her ears, but she didn't say anything. Zhang Xiu quickly finished his wolf. He said it would be good for a few days, but he really couldn't resist the needs of his current god cultivation body. Xuelingyun said, "I'm full." She put the wolf leg to the side as she spoke. "Don't waste." Zhang Xiu picked it up and started chewing. However, Xuelingyun was very attentive to Zhang Xiu's actions. Now that Zhang Xiu's lips were on the place her cherry lips touched just now, she couldn't help but blush. She secretly wondered if he was doing it on purpose. With this look, Zhang Xiu's gaze also swept over. Their eyes met, but Xuelingyun was a bit flustered. She didn't understand. She had faced so many people before and had always been calm and composed. Why did she feel like her heart was racing when facing this little fellow's gaze today? Chapter 485. Zhang Xiu thought that she was still embarrassed about what happened just now and said, "I wasn't mocking you. Everyone's environment is different and their understanding of the world is different. Poor people will never understand what kind of life you live. Yun made a sound of acknowledgement and then asked softly, "You were able to resolve Hei Kei's sword chi, how did you have such ability? There's actually an expert in this field in Tianqing School?" This was what she had always wanted to know. The reason why Hei Kei was ranked on the sword ranking was because of its tyrannical sword chi. Its destructive power was too strong and the number of people in the immortal martial continent who could resolve it was very few. Zhang Xiu being able to do it, in Yun's eyes, was a very inconceivable thing. Zhang Xiu said, "It's really like a blind cat running into a dead mouse." Yun frowned slightly. "If you don't want to say, then this sovereign won't know." However, the tone of his voice was not overbearing. Instead, there was a hint of bitterness. "Yes, bitterness." Zhang Xiu said, "Your injuries are still very serious. I estimate that you'll need 3 to 5 days to recover." "Don't tell me that I have to stay in this damned place for 3 to 5 days?" For someone like her who lived like a princess, this was a bit difficult to adapt to. "That's right." Zhang Xiu said, "If you don't recover from your injuries, once you show yourself, you'll be discovered by Di Chongqing. At that time, I'm afraid that you'll be buried here for a long time." Yun's face revealed a vexed expression. "It's all my fault for being careless and falling into his trap. If I were to fight with him again, I have a 70% chance of winning." Zhang Xiu smiled and did not say anything. After that, Zhang Xiu went to sleep and Yun made use of the time to heal her injuries. The night was silent. When she woke up the next day, bright sunlight shone in from outside. Yun did not know how long it had been, but she felt a warm coat draped over her body. It was Zhang Xiu's clothes. The bonfire on the side had already been extinguished, but there was no sign of Zhang Xiu. She dragged her sick body outside and saw Zhang Xiu standing in the distance, not knowing how to absorb. She tidied her hair, washed her face and rinsed her mouth. After finishing everything, she looked as if she had just come out of the cave. To be honest, when she didn't see Zhang Xiu just now, she thought that Zhang Xiu had left. She felt very disappointed, but when she saw him outside, she felt a burst of joy. Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, he pulled on his wound and let out a muffled groan. "You're awake?" Zhang Xiu said, "Like I said, you have to hurry up and recover. Moving around will affect your recovery." Although his tone wasn't kind, Yun couldn't refute him. At the same time, she also felt a burst of concern and warmth. Softly, she said, this sovereign is just," Zhang Xiu said, "go back and rest, or seize the time to meditate. Leave everything to me." "Yes." Beside Zhang Xiu were 2 more legs of wild beasts. After he went in, he started a bonfire to barbecue them. The smoke inside couldn't float out, so Zhang Xiu didn't have to worry about being discovered by the birds. "What are your plans in the future? Are you still going back to Tianqing School?" Zhang Xiu pondered in his heart. He had thought about this before. He couldn't go back to Tianqing School, and he couldn't even spread the news that he was still alive. Otherwise, his fellow apprentices and disciples would be in danger. The Ji Dao sect wouldn't give Zhang Xiu a chance to make a comeback, and his people were Zhang Xiu's capital. The Ji Dao sect would definitely destroy them. "I'm not going back." Yun asked, "Then where will you go in the future?" Zhang Xiu had nowhere to call home, but everywhere was home. He shook his head and asked, "Oh right, why do you want Di Chongqing's beast core?" "That's a great celestial immortal level beast, the same as you. This decision is very risky." Yun didn't answer. She was clearly afraid. Zhang Xiu said, "You want a beast core of the same level, and one of the great celestial immortal level at that. Of course, it's not for money. It's not hard to guess. If it's not to save someone, then it's to break through. You should be the latter." Yun was stunned. Zhang Xiu's indifferent face had a strong sense of confidence, but she couldn't help but admit that Zhang Xiu guessed correctly. "I've been stuck at the great celestial immortal level for many years, and I undoubtedly obtained a secret technique that can help me break through to the immortal king level. However, I need a great celestial beast core. You can see this point. You're really extraordinary." as expected of a disciple of a famous sect. She didn't know that Jiang Xiu was able to take that step and become the 17th immortal king of Qianqing School because he used a method similar to Xuelingyun's. However, Jiang Xiu didn't expect that the immortal king level would be his final shackle. "What are you planning to do next?" Xuelingyun's eyes were filled with determination. "I'm definitely going to kill Di Chongqing. Once I've recovered, I'll find him and settle the score." Jiang Xiu asked, "Are you confident?" "I've already said that I have a 70% chance of winning." Jiang Xiu laughed in his heart. This ancestor of the Jialan dynasty wasn't young, but her understanding of demons was limited. She should be the type of person who was obsessed with cultivation, and not someone like Jiang Xiu who killed his way up. Di Chongqing wouldn't reveal his trump card so easily, unless you were forced into a desperate situation. However, from Jiang Xiu's perspective, Di Chongqing definitely wasn't in a desperate situation. If he didn't have the black false sword, he wouldn't be a match for me at all. From Jiang Xiu's perspective, Xuelingyun's chances of winning against Di Chongqing didn't exceed 30%. It might even be lower. However, he knew that even if he said this, Xuelingyun wouldn't believe him. From time to time, flocks of flying beasts could be seen flying in the sky. It seemed like Di Chongqing hadn't given up on searching. He was very confident in himself and was sure that Xuelingyun was still in the mountains. "Still haven't found her?" In the sky, Di Chongqing's entire body was shrouded in black smoke. One could only vaguely see the outline of a human. His aura was extremely powerful, enveloping a large portion of the sky. "No." A man at the side was so ashamed that he couldn't raise his head. "We've already searched the entire mountain. Could it be that she's already escaped?" Di Chongqing shook his head and said, "Impossible. She's heavily injured. She must still be in the mountains. Search. Continue searching." "Yes." After roasting the meat, Jiang Xiu passed it over. This time, Xuelingyun didn't say that it was tasteless. However, after a while, her expression became strange. She wanted to say something but hesitated. She twisted her body and looked left and right. Then, she glanced at Jiang Xiu. Strangely, this high and mighty Canaan dynasty ancestor's face flushed red. She lightly bit her red lips. Was she feeling uneasy? Jiang Xiu asked curiously, "What's wrong?" After being asked by Jiang Xiu, she became even more unnatural. She turned her head and hesitated for a while. Then she said in a voice that only she could hear, I want to relieve myself." Jiang Xiu was stunned for a moment. Xuelingyun was indeed very shy, but Jiang Xiu was also very embarrassed. She could have completely found a place to settle it by herself, but she had just been reprimanded by Jiang Xiu not to wander around, and in the end, such an embarrassing thing had happened. Jiang Xiu said, "Can you do it yourself?" Xuelingyun nodded and lowered her head. She got up and walked out. Relieving herself in the wild was probably this ancestor's first time. When she came back, Xuelingyun's face was still red. She had lost all her dignity as the ancestor of Canaan dynasty. Did she still have any privacy? She sat down in a very serious manner and began to meditate. A day later, in the afternoon, Xuelingyun's complexion was much better. However, she didn't walk around. When she opened her eyes, she saw Jiang Xiu sitting opposite her and looking at the grass outside. Wah wah! The sky outside suddenly darkened. There were also the cries of birds. Xuelingyun and Jiang Xiu's expressions changed at the same time. "What's going on?" Jiang Xiu had a very bad feeling in his heart. He immediately rushed outside and used the cover to look at the sky. Above the sky, there was a figure emitting thick black smoke. His aura was extremely shocking. It was Di Chongqing. "Xuelingyun, stop hiding. Come out." Xuelingyun's expression changed. "We've been discovered?" Xuelingyun's injuries were far from recovering. At this moment, she had no chance against Di Chongqing. However, the other party had already killed his way to their door. How did we get discovered? Zhang Xiu didn't understand. He had been paying attention to the situation outside. During these 2 days, there weren't any demonic beasts around. How did such a large group of demonic beasts suddenly gather? Moreover, Di Chongqing came personally. He should have confirmed their location. Where did we go wrong? There was no time to think about it. The black shadow in the sky was already covering the sky and covering the earth. The black sword light slashed towards the waterfall. Chapter 486. The shattered sword slashed through the air, slicing apart the waterfall that was as huge as the sky. Sword chi surged out, flooding the area, rushing towards the cave Zhang Xiu and Xueling Yun were in. Even the surrounding cliffs were sliced apart by the sword chi. Humph! Xueling Yun's slender palm curled up, as though she was carrying a weight of over 10,000 jin. Her aura enveloped the space in front of her as she instructed, "Little fellow, come behind this lord." The dignified headmaster of the Qianqing school, Jiang Luoxia, had actually fallen to the point where he had to protect himself even in the face of sword light. His expression was extremely cold as a cold light flickered in his eyes. When he saw the sword light being curled up by Xueling Yun, it was as though there was a strong suction force in her aura. All the sword light was sucked into her aura. With a violent tremble, the sword light shattered into nothingness. Before the shattered sword light particles dissipated, the sound of wind whistling could already be heard from the distant horizon. Black smoke surged over as Di Chongqing's figure rushed out from within. In his hand was the famed sword Black Watchtower that could shake the immortal martial world. On the sword rankings, the sword was famous, but the person was even more famous. It was unknown how the Black Watchtower ended up in Di Chongqing's hands. Everyone knew that the owner of the Black Watchtower was the master of the Bitter Realm, the Retrograde Leaf. Was the master of the Retrograde Leaf killed? That was an immortal king who was once famous on the genius rankings. Although he was from a different era, his cultivation speed was still recorded. Zhang Xiu's cultivation speed also surpassed him only after he broke through to the heavenly immortal realm. He was also a supreme existence that ruled over an area. Due to the difference in cultivation base and intelligence, Di Chongqing was far from being a match for the master of the Bitter Realm, the Retrograde Leaf. How did his sword end up in the hands of Di Chongqing? Xueling Yun, you dare to have designs on the demonic core of this king? This is a capital offense. Hand over your life. As he spoke, he rushed towards Xueling Yun with the black smoke. Boom! Xueling Yun's palms met the attack, and in an instant, an extremely dazzling light erupted. The palms and the sword collided, and Zhang Xiu felt a gentle force pushing him back. Then, he saw the strong light in front of him shoot straight into the sky, and a hole was blasted in the mountain above him. In the blink of an eye, they were thousands of meters high in the sky. Amidst the misty clouds, the two beams of light kept colliding and bouncing off each other. From afar, it wasn't apparent, but up close, one would be able to sense that the sky was trembling violently, and the airflow was being twisted and distorted. Immortals did not comprehend nomological laws. They pursued the great Tao of Jin Dan, which was more natural and mediocre. They were more well-rounded than gods, but they could also be said to be mediocre. However, anything that was not mediocre would definitely be an extremely powerful killing move. The mysteries of the gold core were endless and limitless. Immortals and gods were extremely astonished. Previously, Zhang Xiu was an immortal, hence he had a very deep understanding of immortals. The source of all his immortal arts was the great golden core art in the jade butterfly of fate. That art contained all the mysteries of the gold core. Naturally, as time passed, there would be some geniuses who would create some immortal arts. But at the same time, there would also be large amounts of immortal arts that would be lost. Also, the golden age of the immortal martial continent had long passed. Before that, there were countless wars between the righteous and evil. Although it wasn't as exaggerated as crawling out from the immortal tomb, many immortal arts were lost. Things always developed in a spiral, and when they reached a low point, they would rebound. There were people who said that the immortal martial continent was currently climbing up from the bottom. The basis of these words was that in the past several thousand years, the immortal martial continent had produced countless geniuses. And he, Jiang Luoxia, was definitely one of the most dazzling geniuses. It was just that his glory was gone with the great destiny art. The battle above was extremely intense, but just like what Jiang Xiu predicted, Xuelingyun didn't have any advantage against Di Chongqing. Let alone the fact that Xuelingyun's injuries had yet to fully recover. Jiang Xiu faintly felt that he had seen this scene before. Such a situation also happened back in his house in Rivertown. This was the premonition of the appearance of the little destiny art. At that time, he saw Cheng Lingsu arriving at his house. And now, he saw Xuelingyun being killed by Di Chongqing in the air. That sword strike that killed Xuelingyun was extremely familiar to Jiang Xiu. In the next instant, he recalled where that powerful sword art originated from. It was the heaven-crossing sorrowful leaf of the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf. After Jiang Xiu broke through to the Immortal King realm, he met the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf at the place of an old friend, and the two of them fought before. At that time, the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf used this sword art. At that time, the reason why he wanted to challenge Jiang Xiu was because there was a flaw in this sword art. In addition, he felt that there was a flaw in this sword art. No matter how powerful a sword art was, if there was a flaw, it would definitely be fatal. He wanted Jiang Xiu to find the flaw and perfect it. And in the end, Jiang Xiu didn't disappoint him. The Bitter Realm retrograde leaf sword art was broken by Di Chongqing's sword art. He was defeated. This Di Chongqing definitely had some connection with the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf. He actually knew the unique sword art of the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf, the heaven-crossing sorrowful leaf. Immortal's wrath tsunami. Xuelingyun roared in anger. The space behind her surged violently as a violent force gushed out. Under the guidance of her palm force, rumbling sounds could be heard as the pressure from the heavens pressed down. Jiang Xiu didn't look because he could already see the result. No matter what the process was, Xuelingyun would still be killed by Di Chongqing in the end. She would die under his sword. In Jiang Xiu's mind, he could see Di Chongqing's tyrannical laughter towards the sky. No one can avoid my heaven-crossing sorrowful leaf. The power of the heaven-crossing sorrowful leaf was indeed great. When Jiang Xiu faced this sword art, he was also shocked. But unfortunately, there was a flaw, and this flaw, Jiang Xiu seemed to have suddenly grasped something. His heart trembled. The flaw of this sword art hadn't been fixed. Jiang Xiu remembered that this was already a matter of several hundred years ago. In the end, the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf still wasn't perfected. However, it wasn't so difficult to break this sword art. And at this moment, Di Chongqing roared in the air, "Xuelingyun, accept your death. Heaven-crossing sorrowful leaf." His silhouette appeared in the air. Countless silhouettes soared through the air together with his sword. Each sword strike would kill a person. Amidst the myriad of falling leaves, a terrifying sense of sadness could be felt. At this moment, the power of all the sword arts stacked together like falling leaves. Chi! At this moment, the sword light seemed to have surpassed the limits of speed. It was so fast that it seemed slow, jumping through the bindings of time and space. Under this sword art, Xuelingyun's entire body was slowed down by several hundred times. There were obvious distortions in space. The terrifying thing about this sword art was that its power completely surpassed the limits of space. In fact, it even broke free from the control of time. But the problem was that if the power was too great, there was no way to control it. Jiang Xiu roared, "5 ghost steps soon." Xuelingyun didn't even have time to hesitate. Jiang Xiu also didn't know if she would listen to him or not. If she listened, she would live. If she didn't, she would die. But in the face of such a powerful sword art, Xuelingyun understood that she might have to submit. But at this moment, she suddenly heard Jiang Xiu's roar. Her sharp sixth sense as an expert made the correct choice. She followed Jiang Xiu's instructions and stepped out. She only saw the sword brushing past her, it didn't pierce her. In the range of a few hundred meters, She was in the middle of it, yet she wasn't hit. Shui Lingyun was dumbfounded. She simply didn't dare to believe it. However, she immediately understood that she would never have such an opportunity again. Her left palm, which she had been preparing for a long time, blasted out towards Di Chongqing's Jr. Di Chongqing was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He couldn't help but glance at Jiang Xiu below. A mere earth god, an ant-like existence, was actually able to see through the flaws of his sword art? Boom! Shui Lingyun's weak point opened up as a violent force gushed forth, slamming heavily into his back. The force penetrated his body, causing a gigantic palm imprint to appear on his chest. One couldn't help but say that Shui Lingyun's palm arts were truly tyrannical to the extreme. The palm imprint continued to expand, and along with this force, Di Chongqing's body exploded like a bomb. This was the body of a demon god at the grand heavenly immortal realm. Yet, it was actually blasted into a pile of mush by a single palm strike. Blood and flesh splattered as a resplendent demon core fell out. Shui Lingyun had a look of wild joy on her face. She grabbed the demon core and excitedly exclaimed, "I got it!" With this demon core, she would have a very high chance of breaking through to the grand heavenly immortal realm and becoming an immortal king. She then turned her gaze towards Jiang Xiu, who was below. He actually saw through the flaws of Di Chongqing's sword art. Chapter 487. Shui Lingyun was truly shocked. A mere earth god was actually able to see through such a heaven-defying sword technique. This talent was truly breathtaking. If it wasn't for Jiang Xiu's shocking talent that allowed him to see through the flaws in Di Chongqing's sword technique, the one to die would probably be her, Shui Lingyun. This little guy, that black ravager, also fell from the sky. Shui Lingyun's clothes fluttered as she chased after it, grabbing it in her hands. This was a famed sword that was famous throughout the immortal martial world. It contained the complete law of darkness. Run! Seeing their king killed, the demonic beasts below were so frightened that they fled for their lives. For a moment, the birds in the sky screeched and flapped their wings, scattering in all directions. Shui Lingyun grabbed the sword and muttered to herself for a moment before saying to Jiang Xiu, "For you." Although Jiang Xiu's cultivation was like an ant in her eyes, Jiang Xiu had played a crucial role in this battle. She had already taken the beast core. This sword, no matter what, she couldn't take it away. Jiang Xiu didn't rashly take it. Black Ravager let out a strong sword hum that sounded like a mournful wail. With a gotcha sound, it stabbed into the ground. "Little guy, why didn't you take it?" Jiang Xiu didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at Black Ravager in front of him and slowly reached out his hand. As if he was caressing his most beloved woman, he lightly caressed Black Ravager's body. His eyes were moist. Time seemed to have returned to that small building where he fought with the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf. That was a battle of immortal king level. Both of them were arrogant and insufferably arrogant. But now, he, Zhang Luoxia, had nothing. As for the Bitter Realm retrograde leaf, what's wrong? Shui Lingyun had already arrived beside him. "You don't want this sword?" "This sword doesn't belong to me." Shui Lingyun was very astonished. Such a famed sword, even if he didn't dare to say that he could fight against great heaven immortals, he could still fight against ordinary heaven immortals. This would make a small earth god like him 100 times more valuable. Even if he didn't dare to show it, he could still use it as a trump card. If it was someone else, they would have already gone crazy with joy. "It's currently an ownerless item. If I say it's yours, then it's yours." Jiang Xiu still shook his head. "No, it has a master and shouldn't be far from here. If I'm not wrong, the bitter retrograde leaf should be imprisoned nearby by Di Chongqing." When he fought with the retrograde leaf admitted that this was his natal sword. If the retrograde leaf died, he would never leave behind this famous sword of the immortal martial arts, let alone his enemies. Therefore, Jiang Xiu concluded that the bitter retrograde leaf was still alive. "Are you sure?" Jiang Xiu said, If this is the life sword of the bitter retrograde leaf, then he should still be alive. He had only met the bitter retrograde leaf once, but at this moment, his heart was filled with the sorrow of a person who had fallen into the same predicament. Give it a try? Xue Lingyun's expression was strange. She increasingly felt that Jiang Xiu was different from the rest. Even she coveted this sword, and it made Jiang Xiu's heart ache. Jiang Xiu actually wanted to return the sword to its owner. Such a huge treasure was at his doorstep, and he actually wanted to give it away? He really was a strange person. I said that this sword belongs to you. You decide for yourself. Jiang Xiu nodded and reached out to pull out Black Fault. He took out a talisman and muttered to himself as he placed the talisman on the tip of the sword. With a wave of his hand, with a sound, Black Fault was thrown out. His entire body flew into the air as he said, "Let's go." Xue Lingyun followed closely behind. The flying sword in front of them formed a parabola as it flew towards the valley at an extremely fast speed. Jiang Xiu's entire body suddenly sped up. In the end, it was definitely Xue Lingyun who arrived at a cave that was filled with demonic qi before her. Inside, there was a huge array that was suppressing a weak man with disheveled hair and shackles all over his body. The Black Ravager rushed in directly, and there were explosive sounds as sword qi was unleashed. He's really still alive? Xue Lingyun's heart felt strange. This also meant that Black Fault was about to be returned to its owner. Di Chongqing, you traitorous disciple. This lord will kill you. Kill you. That man struggled with all his might. However, he seemed to be heavily injured and was being suppressed by the array and shackles. This caused him to howl in pain. It was unknown whether it was from pain or anger. Jiang Xiu couldn't see his appearance clearly, but he felt that it was the bitter retrograde leaf. An immortal king of a generation was actually reduced to a prisoner. We are not Di Chongqing. Di Chongqing has already been killed by us. Jiang Xiu was really surprised. So it turned out that Di Chongqing was the retrograde leaf's disciple. This matter actually didn't spread in the Immortal Martial Academy. This meant that the context of this matter was clear. The bitter retrograde leaf's entire body trembled. He abruptly raised his head and saw a man and a woman. As expected, they weren't Di Chongqing. That bastard has already been killed by you guys? Jiang Xiu nodded. The retrograde leaf's somewhat cloudy eyes looked at Jiang Xiu. Suddenly, a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Jiang. No, you are a god cultivator and so weak. It can't be him. Who are you? Jiang Xiu's current appearance was still different from when he was an immortal king in his previous life. However, his silhouette was similar, especially his mannerisms. This couldn't be changed. The bitter retrograde leaf recognized him at a glance. However, Zhang Luoxia was an immortal king, while the Jiang Xiu in front of him was only a minor earth god. They were completely different existences. The retrograde leaf immediately rejected this possibility. Jiang Xiu. The retrograde leaf looked at Jiang Xiu. The more he looked, the more he felt that he resembled Zhang Luoxia. Coincidentally, he also had the surname Jiang. He asked in confusion, "Why didn't you take Black Ravager and leave?" Jiang Xiu said, "An immortal king of a generation shouldn't have fallen to such a state." These words were said for the retrograde leaf, but also for Jiang Xiu himself. "That's why I have to save you." Boom! Jiang Xiu slashed Gu Gu, destroying all the decorations in the array. The retrograde leaf knelt on the ground in exhaustion, and Black Ravager landed in front of him. "You're free." The retrograde leaf grasped the sword excitedly. Boom! The power in his entire body was awakened, and a violent energy burst out. At the same time, his entire aura suddenly rose, and the energy around him surged. My retrograde leaf has finally seen the light of day again. Ha ha ha. He was so excited that he started laughing crazily. Your name is Jiang Xiu. I will remember this kindness. In the future, if you have any requests for me, you can come to the Bitter Realm to find me. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. He saved the retrograde leaf completely out of gratitude. He didn't expect him to repay him at all. Moreover, if Zhang Xiu really asked him for help, a mere immortal king, and one that was so heavily injured, wouldn't be able to help him at all. You're exaggerating. The group left the cave. The retrograde leaf had to return to the bitter realm to recuperate. This was his top priority right now. After he left, Zhang Xiu and Xuelingyun were left behind. Xuelingyun still couldn't figure it out. Little guy, a favor from an immortal king is far less practical than a black ravager sword. That's a real treasure. There's a complete law of darkness in it, and it's just right for divine cultivation. It's enough for you to enter the sky god realm. I really can't figure it out. If you really need an immortal king's help, I can help you a little when I succeed. She was full of confidence now that she had the demon core in her hands. Zhang Xiu smiled. Let's part ways here. You're leaving. Xuelingyun cried out softly. She was very shocked. What else? Didn't you have nowhere else to go? Xuelingyun said. Tianqing School has changed dynasties. Didn't you say you can't go back? Why don't you come to my Jialan dynasty? You saved me before. I can guarantee you a lifetime of glory. Zhang Xiu really didn't have anywhere to go. Although he had a lot of friends, his identity couldn't be exposed in the current situation. It seemed that staying in the Jialan dynasty and changing his identity wasn't a bad choice. Xuelingyun said, It's decided then. Don't tell me you won't give me face? Zhang Xiu said, However, I'm still a disciple of Tianqing School. If I leave rashly and Tianqing School finds out, I'm afraid it'll be a huge problem for you. Xuelingyun smiled easily and said, Isn't that simple? Creating a new identity in the Jialan dynasty is a simple matter for me. You don't have to worry about that. You'll definitely be a noble disciple. Whether you want to be a young talent or a hedonistic disciple, having a bunch of wives and concubines won't be a problem. Now, do you still have any concerns? Zhang Xiu shook his head. What he needed now was a safe identity that wouldn't draw suspicion from others so that he could grow up again. With a great god sealing technique in his hands, it wouldn't be an extravagant hope for him to rule the Celestial Motion sect in the future. I'll do as you say. Okay, then let's set off for the spiritual state. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.